Councillors, Almighty God, we, the representatives of the citizens of the City of Brisbane, are assembled here to strive and care for the welfare of our city and all its people. Lord, we ask that you guide us in the decisions we make here today. Amen. Amen. We acknowledge this country and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as traditional custodians, their language, songs and dance. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. May we continue to peacefully walk together in respect and in caring for this country and one another. Please be seated. Please be seated. I declare the meeting open. Apologies. Are there any apologies?
Mr Chair, I advise that Councillor Hammond will be absent today, and I move that she be granted a leave of absence from the meeting.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor. Apologies. It's been moved by Councillor Landers and seconded by Councillor Hutton that Councillor Hammond be granted a leave of absence from the meeting today. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Are there any other apologies?
Thank you, Chair. I move that Councillor Griffiths be granted a leave of absence for the duration of today's meeting.
Second. It's been moved by Councillor Cassidy and seconded by Councillor Strunk that Councillor Griffiths be granted a leave of absence from the meeting today. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Minutes. May I have confirmation of the minutes, please?
Mr Chair, I move that the minutes of the 4,661st Ordinary and 4,662nd post-recess meetings held on Tuesday the 14th of September 2021 and Tuesday 26 October 2021 respectively be received, taken as read and confirmed.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Landers and seconded by Councillor Hutton that the minutes of the 4,661st Ordinary and 4,662nd post-recess meetings held on Tuesday the 14th of September 2021 and Tuesday 26 October 2021 respectively be received, taken as read and confirmed. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillors, question time. Are there any questions of the Lord Mayor or a Civic Cabinet Chair of any of the standing committees? Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Chair of the Economic Development and Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, Councillor Adams. Deputy Mayor, in recent weeks we've recognised the best of our local businesses through the Lord Mayor's Business Awards and the Lord Mayor's Multicultural Awards for Business. Can you please update the Chamber on the winners and the contributions they make to Brisbane's economy?
Deputy Mayor.
Helps if I've entered the meeting. Thank you, Mr Chair. And thank you, Councillor Hutton, for the question, because tis the season. The last few weeks have been massive for local businesses and their recognition. And as we head into, finally, Christmas in the city is coming, and what has been a long year behind the wheel, it's been wonderful to actually appreciate those who are the quiet achievers in Brisbane that are doing so well to make sure the engine room keeps running. There have been awards nights and the launch of a new grant program. There's been the Business Hub, which continues what it does best, and our Small Business Roundtable keeps putting forward ideas to help the industry as we are in these uncertain times. The last 3 weeks in particular, as I said, there has been awards, and thousands of members of business community has come to City Hall for the Lord Mayor's Business Awards and the Lord Mayor's Multicultural Business Awards. There's been some great outcomes for Brisbane companies despite the troubles of the past 18 months. And admittedly, these struggles are not totally over. The restrictions on patronage remains a big issue for retail and the hospitality sector. The requirement for masks is discouraging people from certain areas in the city, and the fact that our borders aren't completely open means we are looking at maybe missing out on interstate and international spending. But we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccination rates are going up slowly, hesitancy is dropping, and people will eventually dial back to normality. But in the meantime, our Brisbane businesses are chugging along, and we are standing behind them to make sure they can do the best that they do. It was just 3 weeks ago that the Lord Mayor's Business Awards were held in City Hall, and there were 12 categories up for the night. It was a very, very high-quality shortlist from the most entries we've ever had in a Lord Mayor's Business Awards. Brisbane is home to over 130 businesses, and to be a finalist, an award in achievement itself. And I did not at all feel jealous of the judges that had to go through the category processes. But I do want to talk about the one and only winners in each of these categories to recognise the fantastic work that they are doing. The Urban Utilities Award for Environmental Sustainability in Brisbane was Helios Brewing in Yurong-Pili. Hutchison's Builders Award for Outstanding Social Enterprise, Leap In. CCIQ Award for Outstanding Small Business, Nourished in Petrie Terrace. Accenture Australia Award for Product Innovation, Illume in East Brisbane. ANZ Award for High Growth Business, Swiftex in Milton. HSBC Award for Excellence in International Business, Emercent in Milton. Zero Award for Outstanding Micro Business, Future Anything in Tenerife. The Australia Pacific LNG Award for Business Innovation, Microba Life Science. ISPT Award for Investment in Brisbane, Watkins Steel from Banyo. Port of Brisbane Award for Young Business Person of the Year was Alex Harper from Swiftex. The Courier Mail Award for Business Person of the Year went to Phil DeBella from the Coffee Commune. And the Optus Enterprise Alumni Platinum Award, they're not alumni yet, Platinum Award to Watkins Steel as well. A huge testament in the variety of businesses that are doing so well right across our city as well. And it was fantastic to hear from the winners and to see so many CEOs of those companies being females as well, in light of our grant program for women in business. Running a business is often very thankless, but it pays huge dividends for our city, and it's fantastic that we have the ability to promote them as they promote us as an attractive place to invest and work. So we thank those businesses for that. Just 1 week later, of course, the Lord Mayor held the Multicultural Business Awards, also in City Hall. Again, hard-working local businesses, but from our multicultural background, strong, resilient and extremely talented. And it was another lovely night to shine the light on so many unheard success stories that we have here in Brisbane. The Nick Zinnius Multicultural Young Business Person of the Year went to Ashwani Soni, who founded Holistic Home Care. The Multicultural Entrepreneur of the Year was Rejoice Thompson for her company Dovetail Social. And the Multicultural Business Person of the Year was Harish Arora from Oz Labour Force. Harish has a fantastic story about migrating from India to Australia in 2007, where he had to work 3 jobs, and 5 years later he launched his company Oz Labour Force in his lounge room, which now has international customers employing over 200 staff. And that's why we recognise these people for the wonderful work they do. They're the quiet achievers, and the Schrinner Council knows if Business Brisbane are doing well, Brisbane will do well, and we support them through our products like the Brisbane app and recognising them at these award nights.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further questions? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, over the last financial year, you have spent $1.4 million designing, producing and distributing flyers with photos of your face all over them. In the previous financial year, during the height of the pandemic, you spent $1.9 million on these publications. Year on year, you've been blatantly misusing ratepayers' money to promote yourself. Lord Mayor, just how big is your ego?
Lord Mayor.
Mr Chair, I think the question has to be, how big are the porkies told in this chamber? That is the question, because by his own figures, we're spending less on this sort of thing. But I can tell you, what we're doing is communicating with the residents of Brisbane about what their council and their Lord Mayor is doing on their behalf to make sure that the Brisbane of tomorrow is even better than the Brisbane of today. And, you know, it's actually quite sad that Councillor Cassidy seems to see everything through a party political lens. For what the people of Brisbane see as their informative Living in Brisbane newsletter, Councillor Cassidy calls that party political advertising. That is essentially what he is saying. It is just a false claim. It is completely misrepresenting what this is, and it also ignores the fact that every Lord Mayor, for as long as Living in Brisbane has been published, had a photo on the front of Living in Brisbane. So what's changed suddenly that they don't like it so much? Why has it changed? They didn't mind Lord Jim having his photo on the front of Living in Brisbane. And in fact, we've seen examples where his photo took up the entire whole page of the front of publications. But the only thing that has changed is that this opposition has no issues to talk about other than this sort of stuff. They are not prosecuting any kind of issues that will benefit the people of Brisbane. They are not putting forward relevant and legitimate issues to debate on, and they are simply just throwing mud in the hope that some of it will stick. Well, I can tell you, you did that at the last election campaign as well, and it didn't stick because people saw it for what it was, which was just blatant mud throwing from a team with no agenda for the city, no plans, no policies, and all they can do is try and attack, rather than put forward a positive vision for the city. And so when you've got a leader of the opposition whose #1 biggest issue is living in Brisbane, and whether there should be a photo on the front of it, I think that really says a lot about the opposition. It really says a lot. Councillor Cassidy, come with your A game, come with actual issues to talk about, and come with some consistency as well, because things that you supported in the past and your side supported in the past, no one is going to believe that you suddenly don't support them and that you would do anything different if you were in administration. I can tell you the thing that would change if Labor was in administration would be the photos on the front would get bigger and bigger of whoever their Lord Mayor might be. That would be the only thing that would change. We know that. The people of Brisbane know that. And please, as I said, Councillor Cassidy, come with your A game.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Further questions? Councillor Owen and Billy.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'd just like to ask a question to the Chair of the Transport Committee, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Murphy, city cats have become iconic to our city, and the Schrinner Council is continuing to deliver new double-decker city cats that the people of Brisbane love, want and need. Can you please give the chamber an update on the latest vessel to hit the river?
Councillor Murphy.
Thanks very much, Councillor Owen and Billy, for the question. Mr Chair, we know that people of Brisbane love our city cats and they love taking a trip along the river. Ferries and city cats are considered to be the most enjoyable public transport rides in our city, which I'm sure will be soon rivalled by Metro's trackless trams when they're up and running. Now, ferry and city cat services are truly one of the best ways to see the sights. And I know, Chair, they're a little bit upset and squawking about the trackless trams that this council will deliver in April next year because it wasn't their idea and they can't deliver a pizza, let alone a public transport system for our city. Chair, but we know...
Councillor Strunk, please.
We know that 55% of ferry users find genuine enjoyment from hopping on a city cat and taking a leisurely trip along the river. With that in mind, the Schrinner Council is fully committed to investing in river travel and continually improving our city cat and ferry services for the travelling public. We are investing $27.8 million over the next 3 years to deliver 3 new and improved double-decker city cats. Between late 2019 and 2021, we delivered 3 of these Generation 4 vessels, Yugara, Neville Bonner and Meanjin 2, which have replaced the older vessels to keep our fleet new and modern. These next generation city cats have been carrying even more people up and down the river than previous models, with capacity for 170 passengers. There's space for 20 people on the new upper deck for those who want to capture the best views of Brisbane. And I've talked at length about our focus on making our Metro trackless trams highly accessible and comfortable for all customers, and that's the goal for our next generation city cats as well. These are vessels that are made for every kind of customer, with 6 dedicated wheelchair and mobility spaces on board. In fact, passengers in mobility devices and children have prime location for views and a clear viewing advantage with a handrail on the open front deck and enlarged windows in the main cabin. For those who want to catch up on some work or read the paper on their commute, the main cabin, of course, features tables, lounge seating and USB charging points, to name a few, Chair. In October, we were very proud to launch our 4th double-decker city cat, Barrambin 2. The vast majority of our fleet is named after Indigenous place names, and like Meanjin 2, our newest city cat has repurposed the name Barrambin, first given to an older generation vessel, which has now been decommissioned. On the 14th of October, Barrambin 2 was christened by our country's first Indigenous Australian volleyball player to represent Australia at the Olympics, Taliqua Clancy. In August, Taliqua smashed it at the Tokyo Olympic Games and brought home a silver medal for Australia. And in October, she smashed a champagne bottle over the hull of our new vessel, officially christening the 4th double-decker City Cat for the City of Brisbane. Outside of training and competition, Taliqua is heavily involved in the promotion of sport involvement to Indigenous students across the country, encouraging them to see the significance of education and opportunity in sport. There was nobody more fitting to christen our newest vessel than Taliqua, and once the celebrations had ended, Barrambin 2 entered service that same afternoon, making many of its first journeys down to the University of Queensland and back. We would like to thank Ozships for delivering another fantastic vessel for our city. Ozships are, of course, a local shipbuilder in Murray who now have clocked up over 120,000 hours of work to construct our Generation 4 City Cats. For Barrambin 2, they started work in March this year and reached completion in September, which translated to 33,000 hours of work. The work employed 30 full-time employees, including 4 apprentices, local jobs for Brisbane residents, Chair. Ozships are already busy building City Cat 26, which is expected to enter service mid-next year, which will be followed by the delivery of City Cat 27 in late 2022. We're also planning for City Cats 28, 29 and 30, which will be built in the years ahead. We're very proud of our program of new City Cats and continuing to provide a stable pipeline of work for the Brisbane shipbuilding industry. Of course, the Shrinner Council's investment in river travel goes far beyond City Cats, and there's a lot of exciting projects that will transform our ferry services by the end of this year and into 2022. Of course, we have the brand new Howard Smith Wharves terminal on track to open before Christmas, and I have no doubt that many CBD workers will be taking a trip down to the river to get to their office Christmas parties this week, next week and all through December as well. At the same time, we also have the upgraded Southbank terminal, which will be open to business, significantly enhancing another vibrant dining and entertainment precinct in our city. It's all part of the way, Chair, that the Shrinner Council is delivering more than ever before for our city's public transport network.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think the one person Councillor Murphy forgot to thank was Lord Mayor Jim Sawley, who introduced City Cats into this city. Chair, my question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, in the previous financial year, you spent over $1.3 million on the Living in Brisbane newsletter, $8,000 on business dinner flyers and ads, $30,000 on flyers, posters and booklets for other events, nearly $40,000 on annual reports. And of course, all of these council documents have one thing in common. They have your photo plastered all over them. That's a total of more than $1.4 million misused by this LNP, Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner, for blatant self-promotion. Lord Mayor, do you think this is a good use of ratepayers' money?
Lord Mayor.
Absolutely I do. And it's a good use because we're telling the ratepayers of Brisbane, who we're accountable to, what we're doing on their behalf. So absolutely is it a good use. And I really have to question the motives of someone who would prefer no communication with the people of Brisbane. Where are they going with that? Where are they going with that? It's quite clear. But we've seen time and time again, unfortunately, the Labor opposition and Councillor Cassidy's misrepresenting so many things. And so it is sad that as I said before, that his number one issue is the Living in Brisbane newsletter. This is his top issue. Now, second question in question time about this. Apparently there are no other important issues in the city at the moment other than whether Living in Brisbane should have a photo of the Lord Mayor on it or not. Right. Never mind that it's always had a photo of the Lord Mayor on it, whoever that Lord Mayor might have been, but no, it's totally inappropriate now, apparently, according to Councillor Cassidy. Now, Living in Brisbane not only tells the people of Brisbane what events and festivals are coming up, but also some of the important projects that are being done on their behalf, whether it's Brisbane Metro and the trackless trams in Brisbane Metro, or new double-decker City Cats, or our support for local business, or our upgrades of parks and projects like suburban park upgrades in Victoria Park, or whether it's our investment in footpaths. And it's interesting because the Living in Brisbane just recently had a number of articles about investment in footpaths. Now, I am not the only one to remember Labor councillors and, in fact, a couple of other selected councillors as well, claiming in the budget that there were only 18 footpaths funded in the budget. Does anyone remember that? Yes. This was their big story out of the budget. There's only 18 footpaths. And so I was quite fascinated to see a massive own goal being struck by Labor today in the responses to questions on notice when they asked how many footpaths were either reconstructed or built in successive years. And so this year, and we're talking about the 2020-21 year, so the latest year, we saw 53,119 temporary footpaths repairs. So 53,000 of them. We saw 1,653 footpath reconstructions. So this is where an old footpath is completely replaced with a new footpath. The old footpath is removed, brand new footpath built, and to the average person on the street, that's a new footpath. That is a new footpath. So 1,653, and then an additional 213 new footpaths where there is no existing footpath. So, and what we have is Labor saying, oh, only 18 are going to be built. Who's telling porkies here? Who is telling porkies here? No one said such a thing, and I suggest you stop misrepresenting the fact. And so they asked a question
Allow the answer to be heard in silence, please.
And I can be sure they won't be promoting the answer to this, so I'm going to do it for them. And this is the problem with this opposition, because unfortunately they, in order to get up their stories, misrepresent the facts. And it's like another one they put up recently where they suggested that we had cut 480 bus services. But what had happened is that one bus service had been stopped. It was called the 480. There we go. Tricky. So this is the kind of people that we're dealing with here, who will deliberately misrepresent things like 480 to make people think 480 bus services have been cut. And they'll deliberately say only 18 new footpaths are being built when we know it's thousands of new footpaths either being reconstructed or built. But yet, number one issue is living in Brisbane to them. It is sad. We're going to get on with the job of making sure that Brisbane is a better place, and we're investing in the basics and we're investing in the major projects as well. And we're investing to make sure that people can get around our city easier and that our city becomes more livable. We're investing records amounts in green space, and we're also doing more than any other administration has done before to support local business. And we are serious about making sure we continue to invest in those things, making Brisbane easier to get around, making it more livable and making it a more small business friendly place.
Further questions? Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Chair of the City Planning and Suburban Renewal Committee, Councillor Allen. Councillor Allen, Council has a number of neighbourhood plans underway which help in accommodating the growth of our city, while protecting the things that we love the most about our suburbs. Can you update the Chamber on the plans currently underway?
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you, Councillor Mackay, for the question. It's never been a busier time for planning in Brisbane. I believe our city has been on the cusp of an exciting period of growth for a few years now, and that's only been accelerated after securing the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. The Games bring enormous opportunity to our city. It brings a pipeline of transformative infrastructure and city-shaping projects that unlock new and exciting possibilities for Brisbane and this entire southeast region. It is through neighbourhood planning that we are able to ensure that as our city grows and changes, that we are able to ensure that we have the right mix of housing in the right locations. There are better job opportunities for new and existing residents. There are more lifestyle and leisure options and access to services, healthcare and education, all while protecting the things that we love most about our suburbs and the reasons we chose to call Brisbane home. Every plan has a different purpose in the strategic context of the city to achieve these goals, but all suburbs have a role to play in supporting our growing population. The 4 neighbourhood planning projects underway at the moment are testament to that. In the northeast, we have the Sandgate District Neighbourhood Plan, including the suburbs of Sandgate, Shorncliffe and Deagon. We've been working closely with the local community for around 2 years now to develop a plan that both protects the things that people love most about this area, while also creating opportunities to revitalise the local economy, create more employment opportunities and provide greater housing choice for the community. While the population is not projected to grow that much over coming years, we do expect to see a change in the community profile in this particular region. An ageing population, coupled with more young families moving to the area, meant we needed to create more housing options close to the services and transport. With the Sandgate Town Centre conveniently located beside the train station, the vision was to create a bit of an uplift around the centre while also protecting the unique look and feel of the Bayside suburbs. We've recently completed consultation on the draft neighbourhood plan and are working towards a final release by the end of the year. Not too far away from Sandgate, in the northwest, we have commenced or completing the Brisbane Downs neighbourhood plan. This really has been an exemplary neighbourhood planning exercise where the local community has worked with council to create a shared vision for the future. We asked residents to tell us what they valued most about Brisbane Downs and what opportunities they saw to better their suburb. The community can be confident that the Shrinner Council has listened to their views and developed a plan that strikes a balance between facilitating housing in the right location while ensuring our valued bushland areas and character of our suburbs is preserved for generations to come. We recently received state government approval for the plan to proceed to community consultation, which is planned for early next year. The 8 Mile Plains Gateway Neighbourhood Plan area incorporates parts of 8 Mile Plains and Rochedale, which are considered key economic growth areas for our city. The plan area is well located close to public transport, including the future proposed Brisbane Metro station and between the Pacific Motorway and Logan Road. This plan aims to support the ongoing development of the Brisbane Technology Park, facilitate residential growth around the transport hubs, while also protecting the established suburban areas. We'll be out for consultation on this plan next week for the community to have their say on the future of this area. Finally, Nathan, Salisbury and Maruka. This area has been earmarked as a strategic growth node for more than 10 years under the South East Queensland Regional Plan. Strategically located between 2 major arterial roads and serviced by 2 train stations, which are soon to benefit from major upgrades as part of Cross River Rail. It has a long and rich industrial history, forming a key part of the Southwest Industrial Gateway. And while these traditional industrial activities will continue to be important, we can also expect to see the introduction of knowledge and technology-based precincts that will bring a new wave of renewal. The Maruka Magic Mile has been reimagined as a new mixed-use precinct comprising commercial, office, residential and even some retail. But we recognise that a good plan is all about balance. Where density is proposed in some areas, protections will be increased in others to preserve the traditional character and heritage values.
Councillor Allen, your time has expired. Further questions? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, my question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, on the 28th of September, I made a file request for all intersection upgrades that are currently listed with Council. Council provided me with a partial list of, and I quote, potential intersection upgrade projects, close inverted commas, that would be considered for budget funding. They've told me it's secret, so I can't actually say any more about that. However, the list does not include the Graceville Five Ways project at the corner of Oxley Road and Long Street, Graceville, which is listed in the LGIP to be completed between 2021 and 2026. That's this year and forward. Numerous other LGIP projects are on this list, so why is the important Graceville Five Ways upgrade project not being considered for budget funding at all?
Lord Mayor.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Johnston. Look, I haven't seen this list of intersections that you've referred to, so I'll have to have a look at it and also consult the LGIP to get back to you with some advice on this particular matter. But thank you for the question.
Further questions? Councillor Adaman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is to the Chair of the Infrastructure Committee, Councillor Wines. This week, works will begin on the Cutters Landing Stage 2, with Stage 1 having recently been completed. Can you outline how this project will promote recreational choices for residents across the city by maintaining our city assets?
Councillor Wines.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and can I also thank Councillor Adaman for his question and his keen and ongoing interest in all maintenance projects across the city. As many in this council would know, the Cutters Landing portion of the Riverwalk is near New Farm Park. It starts roughly where the dog park is and it moves along the river in a easterly direction, heading downstream for some hundreds of metres. It is not only a key transport corridor for people who live in that area, but like so many things in Central Ward and in the New Farm area, assets that people from all over the city travel to enjoy. And now this particular item has had quite a bit of work over the last few months, and there's still quite a bit more work to go. So Council has recently completed the Revetment Works, which, for those who don't know what that means, we've been working on this bank stabilisation and ensuring that the land beneath the boardwalk is stable and able to handle the use of the river and the erosion issues. And that presented its own issues in many ways. For example, to make sure that the work was done properly, they would have a small barge come in with rocks, and team members from the council and from the contractor would literally have to put the rocks under the boardwalk by hand. And what was happening was, over time, the bank, because it's a dynamic and eroding waterfront, would shift some of these rocks, and it took a great deal of effort and commitment by those officers. So I'd like to thank them for making sure that that bank is stabilised. As we know, that work, the revetment work that goes with that, and a lot of the stabilisation work, has recently been completed, and that allows us to move on to stage 2, which is the boardwalk itself. As many would know, Council's commitment to maintaining its assets, maintaining the things it owns and keeping them up to an appropriate standard, it has been a focus of the Schrinner Council and many councils before that, but it's been a particular focus over recent years to make sure that the things that we own stay at a standard that the public expects them to be. Now, the Cutters Landing Riverwalk was constructed in 2004. The Brisbane River is what's called a brackish tidal estuary, and therefore there are things that happen in a brackish tidal estuary that will erode steel and concrete, which is effectively what this item is. So what's happening is we are moving into the space, and over the coming weeks and months, we will be replacing the eroded and corroded pillars and the boardwalk elements. And what's interesting, and this is how it's able to be done in a pretty straightforward way, the boardwalk will be shut for some weeks, not months, only weeks, and it will be done in pieces. And what I found fascinating, and it was a real opportunity to go and see under the boardwalk itself. But what happens is the boardwalk on the top is in a series of pieces that can be removed by crane and barge, and then beneath it, it's held up by a series of crossbars, which themselves can be removed in pieces. So it will be done in sort of 12-metre sections over that time. Now, we will, to reassure those people who do come from far and wide to enjoy the New Farm area, the New Farm Riverwalk, the recreational period over Christmas and New Year will not see any closures of that boardwalk. It will remain open through that entire period. However, soon after that, we will see closures partially across that to be able to maintain that the proper maintenance and make sure that everything is up to standard. There will be a small detour while the construction is occurring. There will be a small detour through, behind the building and down, not far from, I want to say Mariners Reach, and the Submariners Memorial will be where people will come through. And this this is one more example of ensuring that our assets that we currently have are maintained and improved so that people can enjoy them both today and for many, many years to come.
Thank you, Councillor Wines. Further questions? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, week on week we see you and your LNP administration contracting out ongoing council work to labour hire companies. Ongoing and basic council work like the landscaping of median strips, road resurfacing, footpath repairs, bus seat cleaning, they're all being contracted out. Contracting work out promotes insecure, casual jobs and less rights for workers. This ongoing work should be used to create millions of dollars worth of stable, permanent jobs here in Brisbane. Lord Mayor, why don't you care about the economic security of Brisbane workers? Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, the theme of the hypocrisy continues on here because Councillor Cassidy was claiming that it was inappropriate to contract out basic council services. Now, I'm going to ask you whether you think these two things are basic council services. Collecting the rubbish, hands up anywhere? Yeah? Cutting the grass. They are the two things that Labor contracted out when they were in administration.
That's right.
Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Basic council services.
Yeah.
Now, why did they do that? Because in the end, it was a better outcome for the ratepayers of Brisbane. Now, I'm not criticising that decision, I'm just simply pointing out the hypocrisy of what the opposition leader is saying today. And in fact, I remember the grass cutting services were contracted out to a New Zealand company at the time. Yeah, and I remember, I think there's a conflict of interest there, Councillor Marks. I remember at the time, former Lord Mayor Graham Quirk, as a local councillor, let a sheep run loose in a park eating the grass to illustrate a point. I'm not sure what point he was making there, but the reality is Labor and their position here is not consistent with what they've done in the past. And so I think people can take a very, I guess, sceptical view of what someone says in opposition when in fact what they did when they were in administration was the exact opposite to that. And so that's what we see here. Now, the suggestion that there is somehow more contracting out is just not true. The suggestion that they've made also in the past that there's more casualisation is just not true. Those numbers have been relatively stable for a very long time. But we do make sure that when we contract out services to get good value for money for the ratepayers of Brisbane, that we try to target 80% of those contracts going to local businesses. And so that is a good thing because I see that there should not be two classes of workers here. These are all Brisbane residents, these are all South East Queensland residents, these are all people that benefit from the great lifestyle of our city, and these are all people that in various ways contribute to the cost of running our city. And so whether it is a local family business doing the grass cutting in our park, or whether it is a council worker, I see them as both contributing to the vision for the city to be a more livable and also a more affordable city as well. Now, if we took everything in-house, I can tell you one thing that would absolutely happen. The price of everything would go up.
That's right.
The price of everything would go up. That is the reality. And what would happen then? Rates would have to go up. And so this is what, I guess, the direction that Labor is suggesting that we go in. Now, we know they don't actually believe that because they didn't do it when they were in administration, but if we did do what they suggested, rates would have to go up. And that would not be the best outcome for the people of Brisbane. Now, there are obviously things that we make the deliberate choice to do in-house. And we do that because we believe it will be the best outcome for the people of Brisbane. But then there's other things that we believe is best to be done by local business and by contractors who have specific expertise in this area. So it's about finding that right mix. And I think we're getting that mix really, really solidly and right, because 80% in the last 12 months of those contracts went to local businesses and supported local workers here in South East Queensland. That is a good outcome. And that's an investment of $950 million into the local economy. And so there are plenty of people who tonight will be able to put food on their table because of work that they have received from Brisbane City Council. And that goes for both council workers and contractors as well. And so I think that is a good thing, and we're working very hard to achieve the right balance, the balance that sees us getting good bang for buck, and it's the ratepayers' dollars we're talking about here, but also making sure that the things that are best done in-house are done in-house. And we'll continue to take that approach. It's a very practical approach, and it's one that delivers a better Brisbane tomorrow.
Lord Mayor, your time has expired. Further questions? Councillor Toomey.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Chair of City Standards Committee, Councillor Marx. Councillor Marx, this past month we celebrated all things reuse, repair and thrift with the 2021 Revive Festival. Can you please give us a wrap-up of the festival and how the Shrinner Council is encouraging residents to reduce their waste and recycle where they can?
Councillor Marx.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Toomey. Mr Chair, anyone who knows me knows that I'm very passionate about recycling and reducing waste. But there are a few things I love more than finding a bargain at a second-hand store. Can I just say, coincidentally, not only is the dress I'm wearing from a Vinnie store, so is this jacket, which happens to be a Karl Lagerfeld jacket. So you go looking, you will find stuff out there. And so it obviously gives new items. No, these are all bought here in Brisbane. It also saves them from landfill. So last month in October, I was extremely pleased that we could celebrate Buy Nothing New Month with another year of Council's Revive Festival. Revive Festival is all about learning to reuse, repair and thrift and help reduce waste and landfill and help create a clean, green and sustainable Brisbane. As a part of the festival, there were a range of free workshops and events across the city to inspire residents, and the events range from learning how to create a more sustainable wardrobe and ways to upcycle more effectively to finding out how to repair household items. From second-hand styling sessions to market stall tours, Revive Festival really did have something for everybody. To celebrate Buy Nothing New Month, we also encourage residents to donate their own pre-loved items rather than sending them to landfill throughout the festival, by offering 20% off vouchers to those who brought high-quality second-hand items to our 4 resource recovery centres. Also this financial year, we've had over 10,000 visitors to our treasure troves and more than 125 tonnes of waste diverted from landfill through donations. Speaking of donations, one of the most interesting events on the festival program this year was behind-the-scenes tour of the Salvo sorting facility at Red Hill, and I understand Councillor Maddock also partook in that tour. So I went along to the tour there, and it's one of the biggest op-shop sorting facilities. We'll find out what happens to our donations once we hand them in. And the volunteers took us on the back of the house tour to learn more about the operations of the sorting facility, and it was interesting to learn about the logistics involved in processing the donations and the clever tricks the volunteers use to make sure nothing gets wasted. And you'll be pleased to know, Mr Chair, obviously I also did not go home empty-handed from that tour and found a few more dresses in that location as well. No, not shoes. They tend not to have my size into shoes, but dresses definitely. And it was interesting. I don't know if anyone's visited Salvos or the shops. So what they do is they work on a colour scheme. So your tags, the tags that they have on the items are different colour code. So every week is a different colour. So they can look at the product, and if it's, say, yellow that week, they know that that's been in that store or in the system for, say, 4 weeks. So then they do the 50% off and 75% off. So they use that same system right throughout. The other thing that was mentioned was that obviously we get donated a fair bit of winter clothing, which is not necessarily worn or is wanted as much up in here in Queensland. So they send that down to Melbourne, which I was very pleased to hear about. So Melbourne gets a lot of our winter stuff that we get donated, and then they in turn will send up the summer stuff to us from there. So I think that's an awesome arrangement, and I'm really glad that these guys do that sort of stuff. The Shrinner Council is committed to providing opportunities for residents to recycle and reduce the waste sent to landfill year-round, and so we've made it easier to recycle and reduce the waste sent to landfill. So residents ordering large yellow recycling bins or green waste bins no longer have to pay the delivery fee, meaning they can recycle more for less. And this administration is also encouraging residents to reduce waste by getting involved in composting or worm farming. Food waste is the largest volume of avoidable material that goes into Brisbane landfill every year, representing about 1/4 of average rubbish bins contents from the Brisbane home. So as you know, we've talked about this before, we're offering and we continue to offer a rebate of up to $70 off the purchase of composting equipment to help some of that, keep that material from landfill. Mr Chair, with the greatest success of Revive Festival this year and the large range of waste-reducing initiatives on offer, the Shrinner Council is encouraging residents to change household recycling habits for the better and create a clean, green and sustainable Brisbane together.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Further questions? Councillor Sri.
Thanks, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, a lot of residents have been a bit disappointed about the current draft proposals for Mowbray Park in terms of the potential demolition of the East Brisbane Bowls Club. And in particular, I've heard a lot of residents who are frustrated that Council seems to be suggesting they need to choose between public parkland and community facilities. I'm not trying to have a go at you. I'm genuinely interested in your thoughts on this. Do you accept the premise that there's an undersupply of community facilities for the Kangaroo Point, East Brisbane area based on the standards of service in City Plan? And do you acknowledge that if this facility is removed, that will further exacerbate that shortage of land for community facilities?
Lord Mayor.
Thank you for the question. Look, I don't necessarily accept that premise, and I simply think that the one thing, the most important thing that we can never have enough of is publicly accessible green space in our city. And that has been a top priority for myself and this administration right from day one, and that's why we're investing record amounts into public accessible green space. And whether it's parkland or whether it's our bushland reserves, that is, I think, one of the top priorities for our city going forward. One of the top priorities for our city going forward. And I think that the majority of people would agree with that as well. I think that, you know, if you ask the public, what are the type of things that make a city truly livable and a great place? Right up the top of their list will be green space and parkland.
Oh, sorry, I've just got to stand quietly until... You've called me?
Yes, I've called you, Councillor Sri.
Sorry, just on relevance, no one's disputing that green space is important. The question was specifically about whether the removal of that bowls club would result in a loss of a community facility that's needed by the community.
Lord Mayor.
Well, it's my understanding that where we have made an offer to the tenants of that facility, Backbone, an alternative location. And so it will be good to see them going into another council-owned facility and activating that facility. And
Councillor Sri.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same suburb to take that interjection. I'm aware that many people that use Backbone aren't from East Brisbane, and they're not from Kangaroo Point either. So in the end, what we want to see is for that facility, for that community group and that organisation to have a much better facility, which I think is the outcome that hopefully we will achieve. And so obviously there's a little bit of work to be done to finalise that outcome, but it would be wonderful to see them continue their good work and activate another council facility that I think many people would agree needs or could do with a bit more use. And so that's the aim here. But I go back to my original point, and that is one of the very top things and top priorities for our community is to have more usable and more accessible green space, and to have that our council invest in that, and that's our top priority.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. That ends question time. Deputy Mayor, will you please move a motion for an adjournment, please?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move that we are now adjourned for a period of 30 minutes to enjoy the race that stops the nation for the Melbourne Cup and re-adjourn after that, restart after that time.
Second.
A procedural motion has been moved for an adjournment for 30 minutes by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Landers. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division has been called by Councillor Strunk and Councillor Sri.
Councillor Sri and Councillor.
Sorry, I didn't see who it was. Okay, Councillor Sri and Councillor Johnston. Ring the bell, please, for 1 minute. Okay, I've just been advised that we don't have the bells to ring, so let's take the division on those who are here. All those in favour.
Yeah, point of order, Mr Chairman. Let's just be clear, there are several councillors not in the room. We do have to ring the bell so people know there's a division. That is standard and ordinary practice. Why is the meeting proceeding if we don't have what's necessary to run the actual meeting?
Councillor Johnston, I'm not aware of this happening before, that the bells haven't been available to be rung. So let's...
apparently the...
oh, we have a way. We're going to ring the bell into the microphone. Okay. We're all right. Thank you. Thank you, Victor, for that workaround. A division has been called on this vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. No. We take an account. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you. See you back here at about 2:20. Hopefully the bells will be ringing. Thank you, councillors. Welcome back. Apologies for that not very elegant departure before when the bells weren't ringing. Thank you for the Tinkerbell, Victor. And we will move on to the rest of the agenda for the meeting. There will be an afternoon tea break later in the afternoon, somewhere before 4 o'clock, about 3:45, I understand, that we'll need to take. Lord Mayor, the Establishment and Coordination Committee report of the 25th of October 2021.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move that the report of the Establishment and Coordination Committee meeting held on Monday, 25th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded.
It has been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the report of the Establishment and Coordination Committee meeting dated Monday the 25th of October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate? Lord Mayor.
Yes, Mr Chair. I just wanted to update councillors on the lighting up of city assets, as I always do. Tonight and also tomorrow night, the Victoria Bridge, Story Bridge, Tropical Dome at Mount Cootha and Redcliffe Place sculptures will be lit up in purple. And the reason for that is we're promoting the annual Christmas appeal for the Lord Mayor's Charitable Trust. So this is something, the appeal is something we do every year to raise money in the lead up to that critical Christmas period. Now we know that Christmas and that New Year period is a wonderful time for many of us, but a particularly sad time for a number of people in our community, and particularly the most vulnerable people and those who may not be able to spend time with family. We also know that calls for support, they peak in that Christmas and New Year period, and so we deliberately make sure each year we run an appeal for that Christmas period and then allocate grants and also provide toys and food bank vouchers in support of a number of different organisations and charities at Christmas. So we'd encourage everyone to share the word about the Lord Mayor's Charitable Trust Christmas Appeal so that we can get more and more people giving to support our most vulnerable people as we go into this festive season. Thursday, we're lighting up the Victoria Bridge and Story Bridges and the Redcliffe Place sculptures in Orange. Can anyone guess to celebrate? Diwali. Yeah, so the Indian Festival of Lights, which usually lasts 5 days and is celebrated at this time of year each year, and is one of the most popular festivals of Hinduism. Diwali symbolises the victory of light over darkness, good over evil, and knowledge over ignorance. I want to give my best wishes to our Indian community at this special time of year, and look forward to catching up with many of the members of our Indian community at various Diwali events. This month also marks Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and the Lung Foundation Australia is providing support and a voice for people living with a lung disease. We're lighting up the Victoria and Story Bridges, Redcliffe Place sculptures and Tropical Dome in green on Friday, Saturday and Sunday in support of lung cancer awareness. We've just had probably the city's biggest ever Halloween, and it does really seem to get bigger and bigger each year, and it's something that so many people across the city do get into the spirit of, particularly children, and we, and particularly Councillor Wines, who was resplendent in his Scooby-Doo costume, and certain other councillors who put in a very good effort as well. Although we had kids out trick-or-treating across the city, unfortunately, I've become aware of a Labor state member, specifically the one for Aspley, who's been out trick-or-treating in recent times as well. Except there's been not much treating and lots of tricking going on. And that specifically relates to the Beams Road open level crossing project. Now, apparently the Labor member for Aspley has suggested that myself personally has been holding up the project. And that's quite an extraordinary claim, given that Council was actually first to the party to actually allocate funding for that project. And we did so back in 2019. And then that was joined by a commitment from the federal government of funding for the Beams Road corridor and open level crossing. And so we've been very much looking forward to the state government coming on board. And it was probably almost 12 months after we made our funding commitment that the state government finally came on board with their funding commitment. But apparently we're holding up the project. So what has been claimed is that apparently we're not issuing approvals for this project to go ahead. What I can say is that we have a fantastic working relationship with the Minister for Transport, Mark Bailey, and there's communication and cooperation that is ongoing, both with myself and also Councillor Wines, and in other respects, Councillor Murphy as well. And so we'll continue working cooperatively to make sure this project is delivered. But I can confirm to dispel any suggestions by the member for Aspley that the approval that was requested from the state government was actually not an approval but a letter of no objection. That letter of no objection has been issued. It's dated the 15th of October, and I'm happy to table this letter in the chamber. So there is nothing stopping the state government progressing with this project. It should be full steam ahead. We're certainly supportive of the project, and we're happy to continue working cooperatively with the Minister for Transport, Mark Bailey. I do think that this is a communication issue quite clearly, because we know that Minister Bailey and the member for Aspley are from different factions, and it's quite clear that the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand, but we're seeing a little bit of confusion here. So, Billy, I will table that document to show that we have, in fact, provided that letter of no objection, and there is nothing to prevent the state government progressing ahead with the project. So, in relation to the items in front of us, item A is the SCP for fuel card services. Our Fleet Solution team manages over 4,200 fleet assets, and that includes everything from cars, trucks, trailers, boats, excavators, large construction equipment, road sweepers, forklifts, and also mowing equipment as well. So these vehicles and bits of equipment are critical to ensure us being able to deliver services right across the city. And given we have such a sizable fleet to service, it's important that we look for the best possible outcome and deal for the ratepayers of Brisbane when we come to procuring the fleet fuel card services. And so what we're doing here is tacking onto a contract already used by the Queensland, New South Wales and ACT governments. So they, with their buying power, which is significant, have entered into an arrangement, and we're able to join up to that same arrangement. So this is the same arrangement used by those other governments. So Queensland, New South Wales and ACT territory government. Our current fuel card contract allows us to fill up with BP fuel. This new contract will give us more flexibility across several major providers, not just BP, but also Ampol, Caltex or Shell as well. We engage FuelTrack, an independent fuel industry expert, to analyse and compare the pricing and network coverage offered by this contract. Depending on the supplier, savings on the pump price paid compared to Council's existing arrangement were as high as 11.6%. So that's obviously an important and relevant saving there. Clearly, this contract offers not only increased network coverage in terms of the number of fuel stations that are available for our fleet, but also significant savings for Council. Item B is the SCP for the Curbside large item collection and recycling service. We obviously have this service now rolling out across the city in various locations. I think the councillor for the Gap ward is one of the beneficiaries at the moment, is that right? No? Okay, I've been misinformed. Councillor Hammond, but there's the current arrangement that we have in place was a continuation of a deal that was signed quite some years ago. And what we're doing is going out to the market to, or we're going to extend the current arrangement so that we can go out to a more fulsome procurement activity in the future. Now, when it comes to the way that this service is provided, obviously we're determined to make sure that residents continue to benefit from this much valued service, and we're doing so by ensuring service continuity while we go out for a new procurement exercise. So the existing arrangement with the supplier will expire next year. So the first part of this item is to extend that contract and to ensure that we can continue to provide the service while we complete the more fulsome procurement process. So we're also seeking tenderers to take on this service for the next several years. One of the strengths of our curbside collection service is that it runs on a scheduled service and allowing residents to plan their cleanups in advance. And we know that's something that's valued by the community. A plan to recycle or donate the collected material will also form an important part of the tender process, as we want to make sure that Brisbane continues to be a cleaner, greener, more sustainable city.
I move for an extension.
Seconded.
An extension of time motion has been received by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Landers. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I was just finishing up, Mr. Chair, but the race is on. The race is done. So basically, this involves, as I was pointing out, a extension of the an extension of the existing arrangement while we go out to procurement for an ongoing, longer-term arrangement. Now, one of the things that we know that happens with curbside collection is that When residents place items on the curb, what is actually collected by the contractors is different to what is put out. We know that a significant proportion of the material that is put out is taken before our team comes around, and that's actually part of the circular economy working, and that is no doubt adding to the circular economy and making sure that items which other people might see a need for or a use for.
Point of order to you.
Thanks, Chair. Through you, would the Lord Mayor take a quick question?
Lord Mayor, will you take a question?
Thanks. Through you, Chair. You might not have these figures, Lord Mayor, but do we have any estimates on what proportion of curbside items are actually recycled locally by residents and picked up, and what is the total amount that actually goes to landfill?
Lord Mayor.
Yeah, look, that at the moment is just a very rough estimate. So, without sampling every single household in a suburb, it is difficult to determine. I can tell you that generally when I put out items, 100% is recycled by someone else. So it all disappears. And if you're not careful, the kids' bikes will disappear from the front yard as well if you leave them in the wrong place. But yeah, look, it is difficult to determine, but the estimates are that 40, 50%, maybe even more, is recycled by residents themselves coming in and sort of collecting items that they see a value for. And yeah, obviously that's work that we want to continue progressing to finesse, to make sure we have the right data here. But also, in the future, we want to make sure that tenderers for this contract are doing more to make sure that the material that is left over is not just all going into landfill. We'd like to see more of it repurposed, reused, recycled, and we believe there's good opportunities to do that as part of a new tender. So, there's the resident recycling that happens, which is just a natural, thing that happens, and then after that, it's what happens when it goes to the contractor that we're also interested in. We're interested in both angles, and so hopefully we can get a better outcome as part of the new contract when we go out to tender for that.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Further debate? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just ask item A and B be taken seriatim for voting, please?
Yes, item A and B seriatim for voting.
Starting with item A, this is Council's fuel card contract, of course, being awarded to BP over the other tenderers, Shell and Ampol. As we know, BP has no refineries in Australia. Shell has a refinery in Melbourne, and Ampol has multiple Australian refineries, including one right here in Brisbane, which supports hundreds of local jobs. And not to mention, Ampol is also rolling out rapid charge EV stations at 121 of its outlets, as Council will need to rapidly move towards an EV fleet. But we see there's an opportunity there to go with a provider like that. But as we see, this Lord Mayor and his administration hasn't taken that into consideration in this contract at all. In fact, what we see here is the Lord Mayor is at it again. At every opportunity, chooses to ship jobs offshore instead of supporting local manufacturing here in Brisbane. First, it was snubbing Brisbane bus manufacturers for Chinese manufacturers and Swiss-made buses for the Metro Busway project, and then ordering in playground equipment from Europe instead of supporting locally made, and now it's snubbing local refinery jobs for those overseas. Ampol has over 1,200 employees across 4 Australian refineries, and hundreds of those jobs are right here in Brisbane, supporting hundreds of Brisbane families. This council could be supporting what's left of our domestic manufacturing, but it's clear this LNP Lord Mayor only cares about one job in this city, Chair, and that's his own, so we won't be supporting this item before us today. Clause B is the Stores Board submission for the Curbside collection recycling service and the collection of the Curbside collection. You can thank Labor and the residents of Brisbane for this contracting plan existing in this chamber today. Because if this LNP Lord Mayor and his team had their way, Curbside collection would still be cut. and our streets would still be dumping grounds, Chair. Each and every LNP councillor on that side of the chamber voted to cut the curbside collection service for 2 years, and then they voted 13 times against bringing it back early. And the only reason it was restored was thanks to the residents standing up to these LNP bullies on this side of the chamber and demanding community services that they pay for in their rates, Chair. And those residents should be very proud of what they achieved. It's unfortunate this LNP Lord Mayor only acted after he was publicly shamed for an entire year, but that's what we've come to expect from Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner. And it says in paragraph 53 of the submission that approximately 230,000 Brisbane households partake in curbside collection each and every year. Well, not last year, of course, because the LNP cut that service. So it doesn't matter whether you live in Bellbowrie or Bracken Ridge or Callum Vale or Enoggera or anywhere else. Everyone has access to this great service. In fact, in paragraph 36, it explains that curbside collection actually promotes community recycling, with around 40% of unwanted items reused each year that the service is run. Despite all of the praises and the community benefits, this basic service fell victim to this LNP Lord Mayor's appetite for suburban neglect, Chair. To spin his way out of it, Adrian Schrinner claimed the funds were redirected into grants for community businesses and organisations. We all remember that claim last year. And that is one of the biggest mistruths that has ever come out of his mouth, and that tells a lot about the mistruths that he tells. In fact, the LNP cut...
Allow the Speaker to be heard in silence, please.
In fact, the LNP cut community grants during the pandemic. Grant funding went from $7.8 million in 1920 to just $4.8 million the following financial year when curbside collection was cut. The only thing that wasn't cut during the pandemic, Chair, was this Lord Mayor's advertising budget. Yet he sits here in this chamber and pretends like he actually cares about the people of Brisbane. On behalf of the Labor opposition, I'd like to thank Brisbane residents for joining us and fighting back against this arrogant LNP administration and to get the basic services that this city and its residents deserve back on track.
Further speakers? Councillor Marx.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair, and I rise to speak on item A and B. So item A, the ENC report about the SCP for fuel card services. I'm not actually sure which chamber that the Leader of the Opposition, through you, Mr Chair, is listening to, because the Lord Mayor quite clearly said this contract has got the 3 different companies, which are Ampol, Shell and BP. Presently, BP have the majority of the service stations in Brisbane, in Queensland. As you actually head north, though, towards Bracalba and that, you'll find that it's more Ampol. So if we were to follow the Leader of the Opposition's way, you would be having people driving to almost Caboolture mostly to fill up their cars every time they needed to. So by having this new contract, we now have access to 3 different companies that we can now access our fuel through, which at a good price. So I think that's a good thing to do. And it also obviously offers a substantial discount off the wholesale fuel prices. And the key driver for this contract is value. So by joining with other large-scale purchasers like the Queensland Government on this contract, we can benefit from their buying power and significant cost savings. As the Lord Mayor mentioned, they not only found this contract increase the number of petrol stations available to us, but we would be paying significantly lower. Mr Chair, it's also important to note that while item A is for the purchase of fuel card services, we also have our eyes firmly on the future, and we continue to make Brisbane clean, green and sustainable. We've maintained a proportion of its passenger vehicle as battery electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles for almost 10 years. In fact, Council was an early adopter of electric vehicles, and we actively trial new vehicle technologies as they become available to stay on top of new developments in the industry. Just a few weeks ago, I was treated to a demonstration of a new electric ride-on mower and was very impressed with the potential that that might have for our citywide services moving forward. It's going to take some time, obviously, to get to the point where we can make a significant step away from traditional fuel vehicles, but in the meantime, we keep our fleet moving to the best possible value for money. Item B is about the significant contract plan for curbside collection. Again, through you, Mr Chair, the Leader of the Opposition is misleading the chamber and the community by saying that LNP voted 13 times against bringing back the curbside collection. That is 100% inaccurate. The vote was against the urgency of a motion, not against the bringing it back. So just to make sure that everybody out there knows the actual truth about what was actually happening on. So as we know, the services was allowed to residents to put bulky items on the curbside and have them collected for free. That's been said here a number of times and in the media. The Lord Mayor made the very hard decision to postpone curbside collection enable that $6 million to be spent onto local businesses. And that's where that went. And I know that, as I mentioned on the radio this morning, a lot of local businesses are very grateful to the Lord Mayor for that initiative. This contract, as we've said, is about extending the current one for the 12 months, which will give people a chance to obviously to put in a tender for the new contract. As the Lord Mayor's mentioned already, we're very keen to see recycling as a major part of the new contract. Presently, it's only about 4% of steel is recycled through that collection at the moment. It's unknown how much via the residents taking, but I think 50% is great, and it's absolutely encouraged. I was asked at one point in the media what I thought about people stealing from people's curbside collections, and I said, well, we don't see it as that. We see it as a great way to recycle and reuse things that people no longer want. And I think you'll find yourself through you, Mr Chair, that your own ward is particularly one that was actually brought up on the radio not long ago about how that's the place to go when you're looking for stuff to recycle, is head out to Hamilton. So potentially you would have got a bit more traffic when it was out that way. So look, this is about doing the best we can for the ratepayers, using the money wisely, and then doing what we can for residents. And like I say, we want to try and get recycling happening as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Councillor Marks. Further speakers? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, just briefly on item B. It's fascinating now to me that the LNP Council is claiming credit for this curbside collection service, large items curbside collection service being returned. Really, it was the people of Brisbane who spoke out in their thousands. I don't know how many petitions have gone through this place. It'd be easily 24 petitions. Yeah, and you know, Labor campaigned very hard on this as well. But let's not forget that it is the LNP administration that decided to cut curbside collection. Now, the Lord Mayor hops up in this place and talks about how they closed down pools and closed down libraries. This LNP administration is going to be remembered for actually getting rid of important garbage services in Brisbane, and then having to be forced, kicking and screaming, to restoring them. And Councillor Marks has just said, oh, look, it was a really hard decision, you know, it was $6 million. In the answers to the questions on notice today, the Lord Mayor is spending $4.3 million on his Brisbane app, but for 2 years there was no money to pick up the rubbish on Brisbane streets. That says absolutely everything about the deluded priorities of this LNP administration. This process should never have stopped. I'm surprised the Lord Mayor hasn't been up, you know, saying these, you know, probably close to 10,000 people, calling them fake like he did to Brisbane residents last week who were advocating for a change in the direction of council. But let's not forget for a single minute, the LNP cut this vital rubbish service that the people of Brisbane love. It's in the report, so it's not a difficult concept to understand. It's well known within Brisbane City Council how important this service is. But the Lord Mayor decided that spending $4.3 million on an app was more important than picking up rubbish off the streets, and that's the wrong priority.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Sri.
Thanks, Chair. Rise to speak on items A and B. Just briefly with the fuel contract, I think BP is a pretty immoral company, and I'd greatly prefer it if we didn't have to do business with them at all. If anyone's interested in an example, look up the environmental disaster with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. It still causes environmental damage to this day. It's over a decade since that oil spill, and BP paid around $20 billion in damages, which still didn't cover the costs of the harm they did to that ecosystem. Deepwater Horizon, for anyone who's watching online and wants to look it up. But I think I think it does highlight the need for council to accelerate the shift towards EV, like electronic vehicles and battery-powered vehicles. I realise this is a hard thing. I realise there are a lot of barriers. I'm not oversimplifying the challenge. For example, I really like having a ute, and there wasn't really an electric ute available at the time when we were sourcing vehicles. But I do think council should be putting a bit more resourcing and energy and attention into leading this shift. I know other smaller councils and government departments are making a big transition towards electric vehicles, and I'd like to see a stronger, more assertive commitment from the LNP administration that they're going to head in that direction, because right now it seems a little bit tokenistic, and I see council still taking on plenty of new vehicles that aren't electric, even when it would be pretty easy to get. Sorry, what was that, Councillor Mackay?
Yep.
Okay, just interrupted as usual. That's fine. Just what the.
Councillor Mackay, please, no interruptions.
Yeah, that's all right. I see quite a few examples where new council vehicles have been brought into the fleet when there are electric equivalents or alternatives, and maybe that's something that the Mayor might want to reflect on a bit further in his summing up comments. And like I said, I know it's not a simple thing, but I'd like to see the administration being a bit more proactive on that front. In terms of item 2, my comments about outsourcing, I think, stand. It's continually frustrating to me that I think what should be considered core council services are outsourced and privatised to private companies. I acknowledge that in this case it's a local business, but the fact remains that outsourcing and privatisation is a backdoor to increased casualisation and insecurity of the workforce. We as council don't have a direct line of sight, or we can't be 100% confident that workers in some of these industries that we're outsourcing through to are being paid fairly. We don't know in detail their conditions, so they're doing work for council, but we don't know if they're being paid properly, if they're getting adequate sick leave and vacation leave, etc. And I think that's a problem. If council is saying, hey, it's cheaper for us to outsource to the private sector than for us to do this stuff in-house, maybe one of the reasons it works out cheaper is because the private sector doesn't always pay its workers properly or offer them the same job security. The other reason I have a lot of concerns about privatisation and outsourcing is simply that the amount of time council spends on tendering and contract management adds great inefficiencies into the process. So we look primarily at the value of the actual contract, but we sometimes exclude the administrative work in terms of negotiating those contracts, in terms of putting out the tenders, etc., etc. When you add that all up, I actually don't think privatising and outsourcing is necessarily a good financial move for the council, particularly in a context like this, where we have a regular ongoing service that council presumably wants to continue for some time, but we also periodically have a need for council to deploy these services in response to specific disasters. So, for example, when there's a flood event and a lot of damaged furniture that needs to be picked up, if we're relying on private sector companies to do that work, then we have to renegotiate and pay additional costs or else divert other services. It would be better for council to have that capacity in-house. I'd also be really interested, though, in a little bit more information from the Lord Mayor or maybe one of the other councillors who wants to speak, to understand more about what is the medium-term strategy with council in terms of minimising the amount of large item waste that goes into landfill. And I've now heard that percentage quoted repeatedly, 40% of items being recycled. I'm happy to take that on face value, but it kind of seems like it could have been plucked out of thin air. If it's just a couple of councillors or a couple of council officers looking out the window and sort of guessing what's getting picked up, then fair enough. Like, I realise it would be a hard thing to collect data on, and I imagine that the proportion of locally recycled items would vary a bit from one neighbourhood to another, and so it's really hard to generalise across the city as a whole. But if we're putting it in our reports and saying confidently that it's about 40% is getting recycled locally by residents, we need to have something to back that up. I don't know. I don't think any of us really know for sure. But if that's factoring into our calculations in some way in terms of the value of this service, then it would be better to put some kind of number on it. I'm, I guess, also a little bit concern, and again, this relates back to the privatisation, but it would be a concern perhaps even if councils run the service directly, is that we don't seem to have a really clear idea of exactly how much landfill is, or I certainly don't have a clear understanding of how much is actually going into landfill, and if there's a figure in terms of tonnes that the Mayor can provide, like how many tonnes of large item waste ends up going into landfill. I'd be really interested in that. It strikes me that there's probably a lot of marginal opportunities for recycling some more of that waste where it might not be commercially profitable to strip back large items and you know, sell on the metal or sell on the copper or whatever, and so those things don't get diverted into a recycling stream. But I would be making the argument that such materials should be recycled and prevented from going into landfill even where it's not profitable to do so. And perhaps that's a philosophical distinction, but we know that with these private companies, they're not going to be recycling material and diverting it from landfill unless they can make a buck out of it. And I don't think the Mayor would dispute that. That's the nature of the private sector. They're only going to recycle stuff where it makes sense commercially and where it's profitable to do so. But I would argue that councils should be looking for opportunities to recycle items that are collected through large item pickup and divert them from landfill, even where we're not making any money. And so I'd be keen to understand from the Mayor how that's factored into the future contract. To what extent are we rewarding tenderers that can demonstrate that they'll be recycling materials even if it's not profitable? Finally, I wanted to highlight that I think it's great that council acknowledges that it's not a crime to pick up rubbish off the curbside, even though technically under council's local laws it probably is an offence. And I think this is directly relevant to the matter at hand. Recently we've been contacted by a resident who he collects cans from wheelie bins. And this is the thing, Councillor Marks, I'll take that interjection. Apparently it's illegal to take cans out of someone's wheelie bin because that's going through their rubbish or stealing either their property or council's property. And I think this distinction's a little bit, you know, I mean, really, what's the difference? If it's legal for someone to take large item rubbish that's been left on a curbside, why is it illegal for a low-income resident to flip open a recycling bin lid and take cans out? We heard from one distressed resident who he was out collecting cans from people's bins one night and the police rocked up and told him off and said that council was cracking down on this. I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not. But it would really trouble me if council was persecuting people who are collecting rubbish simply to, you know, recycle some cans and make a bit of money. And maybe that's something that Councillor Marks doesn't need to respond to today, but I hope that will be looked into, because I think if we acknowledge that it's acceptable for residents to recycle large items that are left out for rubbish collection on the curbside, why is it so different that a resident might go through a recycling bin, open the lid and take out some cans? What is the philosophical or material distinction there? Why is one treated as an offence while we look the other way on the other? As I said, legally, if you read the technical rule of the law, both are offences. It is an offence under, to collect someone else's rubbish that's put out on the curb. So if council is willing to look the other way and not prosecute or fine people for picking up other people's rubbish and recycling it, why is council cracking down on people taking cans out of recycling bins? I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Sri. Further speakers? Councillor Toomey.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to speak on item A, and before I say a few words, I've actually drawn some inspiration from Councillor Murphy this afternoon in saying that our Labor councillors would struggle to deliver pizza. Can I also add to that research and historians? And I say that in some jest because when I went to university, I was taught if you do any research, you go to first principles. Find out what is the truth, find out what was said. We heard Councillor Johnson and Councillor Cassidy say it was cut. Just cut. They just cut it. All they did was cut, 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 cut. So going back to first principles, Lord Mayor's speech 2020-2021, and the Lord Mayor said, for the next 2 years we will pause Council's Curbside collection program, saving around 30 million. We have budgeted to resume that service in 2022. Now, I know Councillor Johnson over here is cackling, and I do find that entertaining because Councillor Johnson also said it's in the papers. It says it was cut in the papers. But what does it say? It said the collection service was paused. Paused. Black and white. In 2020 due to COVID-19. Now, if we draw on last year's council meeting budget speech, which was 2021-2022, and have a look at what the Lord Mayor said about curbside collection back then. Expecting a 2-year pause, the Lord Mayor said, "Mr Chair, I can reveal curbside collection is coming back 12 months earlier than planned. Because of our strong management of our city's finances has ensured that this popular initiative is now affordable. We won't be lectured by those who confuse the magic pudding with the economic textbook, by those who have abandoned our residents, our businesses and our community groups in their hour of need." Now, the Lord Mayor is referring to pausing curbside collection to assist our community groups that are in our community during COVID, because they didn't have the access to the funds that they normally would. There wasn't the activities around their facilities to generate their income. We were assisting them. This council, the Shrinner Council, was keeping them afloat during COVID. Now, for some strange reason, the opposition benches don't seem to think that this is important. They don't seem to think that people like the Bridge Club, like cystic fibrosis, like all those other community groups that are providing vital services to those who are also in need at the same time in COVID aren't worth our support. That's what they're saying. The Lord Mayor went on further in his speech to say, as I mentioned earlier, we're also able to fast-track the return of curbside collection after it was paused last year to help us give assistance to thousands of food retailers, construction, industry and community groups. So all of that money that was saved, all of those funds that were preserved during COVID went to help not only our community groups and our leasees and all of those communities, sporting clubs is them as well, but it was also the man on the street, the coffee owner, the guy who had footpath dining. We even lifted parking in the city. And all of that possible because we paused curbside collection. I want to thank the Lord Mayor for doing that, because I know there's a lot of community groups in my ward particularly, and in your wards as well, that have benefited from pausing curbside collection. And I know when we had an afternoon tea to welcome those community groups that we've assisted into City Hall and thank them, the emotion that was in the room and the thanking and the handshaking that was done by the Lord Mayor and those community groups was unbelievable. And I know Councillor Howard was there, I was there, I think Councillor Cumming, you were there as well. It was overwhelming that these community leaders had come together in the one room to thank the Shrinner Council for the work they had done to help them during their toughest times. But apparently that's not important to the opposition benches. On the contract itself, I just want to say a few words. One is that changing behaviours is generally a generational thing. And as a council, we're very good at helping generational change. We have recycling programs that we teach to our kids in our schools. We have recycling programs that we teach to kids in our kindies. We also have recycling programs on our street that we teach to our own residents. And knowing that we have so many residents coming into Brisbane, I think we had over 500 last night, Lord Mayor, coming in. There's this continual flow of education that goes on, and it doesn't stop. We're very, very good at that. When you compare our recycling programs to other local government areas around South East Queensland, we are a shining friggin' beacon. That's what we are. And we are going to continue that. And this this program that's being introduced by this Lord Mayor and this procurement through Councillor Marx as well is the next step. We're talking about taking curbside collection and recycling what we can out of curbside collection, something that we've not really done before. Most of it has gone to landfill that hasn't been picked off by passers-by. This is an outstanding initiative, this contract, and I really want to commend this council for doing that, because this is something different. This is something new. This is something very exciting, and I hope all councillors support item B today. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just briefly, thank you to the councillors who contributed to the debate. I think, given that we've had a little bit of discussion around curbside collection and some of the claims that were made, I think it's important to actually go through a clear timeline on the history of curbside collection in Brisbane, because I've been around long enough to know that curbside collection for a very long time only happened once every 2 years. And so previous Labor administrations, if they had a curbside collection, it was only once every 2 years. And what they would do is they would have, and yeah, Councillor Johnston remembers it, and so she's confirming the information that...
Please, no interjections.
It's confirming the information that I am saying here. So Labor's idea of an essential service was once every 2 years, and then green waste in the alternating years. So you put out your green waste collection. Now, in response to Councillor Johnston's interjections, we are the side that introduced the green waste collection bin. We are the side that, in the lead up to storm season every year, offers free
Councillor
green waste.
Johnston, enough.
There's a bit of disorder in the House, in the chamber, Mr Chair. In the lead up to storm season, we offer free green waste tipping so that people can clean out their yards, their gardens, and get rid of that green waste for free. Plus, we also add the green waste recycling service. And so we've introduced this new service, green waste recycling. We offer free green waste tipping in the lead up to storm season. Plus, we are the side that proudly made curbside collection an annual thing. It should be called LNP's curbside collection, or maybe Campbell Newman's curbside collection, or maybe Graham Quirk's curbside collection, because we are the side that introduced the annual curbside collection. And we've continued to improve on that service, just like we do with everything that we do. And Councillor Johnston continues to interject, and I just wanted to point out some misinformation that was raised by Councillor Johnston. She said that curbside collection was stopped for 2 years. It wasn't. Keep a track. It was stopped for 1 year, and then it was brought back 12 months early.
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Councillor Johnston.
Claim to be misrepresented.
And so we've made it very clear right from the beginning that in the budget we would bring back curbside collection as soon as we could afford to do so. We originally intended that it would be paused for 2 years, and then it was only paused for one budget. So we brought it back earlier. And look, Labor can claim all the credit they want. Look, if it makes them feel good about themselves, I'm happy for them to do so. Like that, you know, we can't stop them. But the reality is, I remember their rally that they organised on curbside collection, and basically it was a rally of Labor councillors, their staff, Labor state members, their staff, and Labor federal members and their staff. And this was the big community uprising on curbside collection. We've got the photos, and each person can be identified as either a Labor elected rep or someone that works with a Labor elected rep. And so this is their big community campaign that they claim has done it. Well, I'll tell you what did it. Responsible financial management did it. We were able to bring back the service 12 months earlier than anticipated because of responsible financial management. But in the meantime, we're able to redirect much needed funds to where it needed to go. Supporting community groups with $3 million in grants, and they were quick grants that were approved in many cases and sent out the door in a matter of just weeks. Application came in, approved in the pockets of local community groups within a matter of weeks. The fastest grant turnaround I have ever seen in this council's history, and it was at a time when community groups really needed it.
That's right.
And they appreciate it because there were more than 300 different groups across the city that got those grants. And then it was also the businesses where we waived the fees and reduced the fees. Once again, at a time when they were struggling, and they received a bill from Brisbane City Council which said normally you would pay $750 for your food business licence, but guess what? This time you're paying nothing because we want to see you survive through this pandemic. And so critical savings that were made possible by the pause on curbside collection went straight back out into the community and went straight back out to support our struggling businesses. And that was the right thing to do. And I have to say, if I had my time again, with everything we know in hindsight, I would have done exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. It was the right thing to do. But it was also great that we could bring it back earlier than anticipated. We did that. And we have resumed the LNP's annual curbside collection. We have resumed Campbell Newman's annual curbside collection and Graham Quirk's annual curbside collection because we believe that this is a service that's valued by the people of Brisbane, and we're certainly seeing the great take-up and appreciation for that service out there in the suburbs at the moment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Johnson, your point of misrepresentation.
Yes, the Lord Mayor said that I had incorrectly stated that curbside collection services were cut for 2 years. In fact, curbside collection services were cut in my ward, and the last one was in April 2019, and the service did not resume until August 2021, which is over 2 years.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We now move to the vote on items A and B, taking them seriatim. Moving item A. All those in favour of item A, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division's been called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Strunk. Ring the bells. We have bells. Thank you. We have a division on the vote on item A in the ENC report. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. Aye. Those voting, thank you. Those voting no, please say so and raise your hands.
No.
Are there any abstentions? Clerks? Councillor Strunk, can you turn your mic on?
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 19 in favour and 5 against.
Thank you. The ayes have it. We now move to the vote on item B in the ENC report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to the Economic Development and Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games Committee. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move the report of the Economic Development and the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Hutton, that the report of the Economic Development and Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just have to make the comment that obviously those on the other side don't need to get their fuel cards when we get round and do the new contract sorted for their cars in the future years. Just like the Lord Mayor goes through the lighting up of the city, I need to go through the Business Hub and the fantastic workshop and mentoring programs and what's happening on this week in the Hub. From tomorrow, 9 a.m, emotional intelligence, the driving force behind leadership, effectiveness and high-performing teams. Some people in here may need that. The masterclass will cover why EI is a foundational leadership competency and how to work productively with emotions, being sponsored by Mind Cultivation. From 3 to 5 on Thursdays, there's Mental Resilience Mastery, a session with David Nair, and he will share his 2.5 decades experience on coaching and mentoring people. On the 9th of November, Purpose in Praxis, learning how to adopt a purpose-led strategy, being sponsored by IntelliDesign, People with Purpose. And also on the 9th at 3 o'clock, how to prepare for new super legislation. So that is a big one if you're running your own business with employees, how the single default accounting works and how to prepare for this important change. And thank you to CCIQ and Sun Super, who are sponsoring that program as well. Again, I reiterate, councillors, please send your businesses, small businesses, medium or large, to look at the opportunities at the Business Hub. Last week's presentation was on the City Economic Update. As we do at the start of each session, we've brought up to speed on what's happening on the ground, both inside and outside the CBD in terms of retail spend, foot traffic and CBD office occupancy. Our Economic Development Manager presented some very interesting stats, including that 14,400 people moved to Brisbane in March 2021, the highest migration number of any capital city in the country. And why wouldn't you, is all I say. This also matches the data, obviously, that we are seeing on buyer search volumes and obviously what we're seeing at auctions that happen every Saturday around our suburbs as well. Unfortunately, unemployment numbers are still high, despite there being a record number of jobs available on seek.com as well. Queen Street Mall foot traffic is sitting at about 54% of pre-COVID levels, and this data does ebb and flow as we see lockdowns occur. We're anticipating a much higher increase in foot traffic as we enter Christmas season, and Christmas in the city is going to be spectacular, not just for everything that is festive, but of course factoring around shopping. Don't forget that Black Friday is coming. On the topic of general traffic, Wednesday and Thursdays are currently the busiest days on the road, with a much higher turnout of workers in the office instead of working from home, and the lowest traffic congestion index was August 2021 with just 42% of pre-COVID levels. Not surprising that was lockdown week as well. We're seeing the same within the CBD offices. The data we're getting from Property Council, occupancy rates at around 50% at the moment, and we will be working hard in the Shrinner Council with our Small Business Roundtable, the Economic Development Team, Brisbane Economic Development Agency, to ensure we support businesses to bring people back into the office and make sure that they're supporting our businesses right throughout the CBD. I recommend the report to the Chamber.
Thank you. Further debate? Any further speakers? Councillor Adams, thank you. We now move to the vote on this, on the Economic Development and Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games Committee report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Councillor Murphy, Transport Committee report.
Chair, I move that the report of the Transport Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded.
It has been moved by Councillor Murphy and seconded by Councillor Owen that the report of the Transport Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to update the Chamber on a number of issues in the transport portfolio. Firstly, to our committee presentation the other week, the Shrinner Council is getting on with the job of delivering our new Green Bridges program. Following Connect Brisbane, led by Bessex Watpac, being awarded the contract to build the Kangaroo Point Green Bridge earlier this year, we've now released the final design for the Breakfast Creek Green Bridge, and what an impressive bridge it is. It's always exciting to talk about this bridge, Chair. Not only will it be an excellent walking and riding connection in its own right, but it augments the existing and highly successful Loris Bonnie Riverwalk, which I think we can all agree is a 5-star example of green transport in our city. Since the Riverwalk was open, more than 2,300 people use it to walk or ride around our city every single day. Of course, the Breakfast Creek Green Bridge will provide an extension to this Riverwalk and also provide ongoing connections through Newstead Park, Newstead Avenue and Newstead Terrace. The walking path on the existing Breakfast Creek Road Bridge is about 2.5 metres wide compared to the minimum width of 6 metres along the length of the new Breakfast Creek Green Bridge, which is a far better outcome for walkers and riders. The star of the show in this final design really is the bridge itself, designed to complement the unique natural and heritage features of the setting of Newstead Park. It will be an 80-metre long arch bridge with about 2.8 metres of clearance over Breakfast Creek. The arch structure will also feature a distinctive green and brown colour palette drawn from the leaves of the Moreton Bay fig tree. I'm sure you councillors, it looks a lot better than it sounds. Drawn from the leaves of the Moreton Bay fig tree, which features prominently in Newstead Park. Pause points will be delivered at the southern and northern ends, which will provide an opportunity to enjoy the views of Newstead House and of the Brisbane River. To complement existing lighting in key heritage places, including Newstead House and Newstead Park, the bridge and the landing points will also feature controllable LED lighting, just like our other city assets that we light up on a regular basis. I'm sure Councillor Wines is looking forward to getting his hands on that. The landing point in Newstead Park will be delivered with new signage, new rest areas and drinking fountains, which is truly a better outcome for the entire park and its amenity as well. We do acknowledge that there has been a lot of construction in the vicinity of the bridge over the last few years, I'm sure you're aware of, Chair, and we know that much of that has been due to the multi-award-winning Kingsford Smith Drive upgrade. As part of delivering this bridge, much of the construction work will occur from the river itself and Breakfast Creek by barge, alongside work on sites in Newstead Park and Cameron's Rocks Reserve. We are looking forward to awarding the contract and starting construction of the bridge early next year, and we hope to absolutely minimise the disruption for residents and for motorists and commuters along that section of the river. Lord knows they've had enough disruption as it has been. Mr Chair, at committee last week I committed to giving an update to the Chamber about the significant amount of work that has been completed over the last few months to improve the on-road facilities for our bus drivers. I am committed to ensuring that our bus operators are able to use bathroom and meal facilities that are clean and that are well maintained. And we regularly clean facilities throughout the network, and we doubled the regular cleaning schedule in line with COVID requirements. I'm pleased to say, Chair, that since June 2021, 22 chemical toilets have been upgraded with new parts. In the same timeframe, 14 facilities have received deep cleans and others have received additional cleaning on top of routine cleans. In fact, since June, Council has delivered over 85 different upgrades to chemical facilities across the city. These include improvements such as new toilet infrastructure, flooring replacement, new sinks, repainting, deep cleans, new mirrors and much, much more. Every single council-owned chemical facility has received some kind of an upgrade during this period, and many have received multiple enhancements. This is work that is happening on the ground every single week, and it is enhancing facilities for our bus drivers. And I was with a group of bus drivers just this morning out of the Eagle Farm Depot, and from everything they've said to me, that work is being noticed. Of course, it's not just chemical facilities. There's many other plum toilets and meal rooms that have received upgrades and deep cleans over the last few months too. Part of this much more recent work has resulted from an audit that I asked for all on-road facilities to be completed in June, in line with the Lord Mayor's request, and we are always happy to receive genuine feedback from our drivers about the condition of these facilities, and where we can improve things, we will. It's also important to note, Chair, that Council doesn't maintain all bus operator facilities, and facilities along busways are the responsibility of TransLink, but our drivers also use those facilities, and so sometimes there is some confusion about who is responsible. In the past, Council has had to step in and repair some TransLink-owned facilities because of a lack of action from TransLink, but we're always happy to do so because our drivers come first. We also are doing a body of work at the moment to determine which chemical facilities we will be able to transition to plumbed facilities in the future, in line with budget funding. But as you're aware, Chair, we don't operate chemical toilets at end-of-trip facilities as a choice. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes there is no appropriate plumbing connection for that facility, but the route goes there, so we need to provide facilities for our drivers, and we do that. I also wanted to address a question from Councillor Sri, who last week in committee raised with me the possibility of adding another stop to the Blue City glider outside the Woolworths on Montague Road. I'm aware that Councillor Sri has previously liaised with Transport for Brisbane about this issue, who has described some of the issues with this option. Through you, Mr Chair, Transport for Brisbane will be in contact with you again, Councillor Sri, regarding a way forward, but I can also provide some more insight today. And it's important for us all to remember that City Glide services are so attractive because they offer quick trips with limited stops, and that is what is central to their success. That is why they are one of Council's most popular bus services. Transport for Brisbane, as a rule, does not consider adding another stop as feasible, either as a trial or a permanent solution. Transport for Brisbane is concerned that any consultation suggesting that this option is feasible would produce community expectations that council simply cannot deliver. The Blue City Glider being the highest frequency service that already experiences significant on-time running pressures as a result of running on the road network. The service is also scheduled very tightly, has minimum turnaround times at the terminus. Drivers receive a 4-minute meal break, and services are on about a 4-minute frequency at times during the peak. There's absolutely no give in the timetable to add another stop as a result of these issues. The additional operational costs would also be quite significant. We don't have the extra articulated buses at this point to put on the service. We have modelled the additional cost as a result of retaining that stop at an additional $300,000 to $400,000 per annum. So I understand that there are some residents that are catching the service in this area who have mobility issues, and the additional distance of the 140 metres to Cordeaux Street is a challenge for them, but there are very real restraints around adding additional stops. So we need to be able to make the timetable work. We need to make the additional cost work as well. And even then, that was only if we had the buses. So in the past, Transport for Brisbane, through my office, has suggested that Councillor Sri undertake some community consultation to gauge himself, community sentiment about possible bus stop changes, and I understand that Councillor Sri has not provided details of that consultation to officers, detailed consultation to date. That being said, Councillor Sri, Transport for Brisbane are willing to engage with any individuals that would be adversely affected by this change to understand their individual circumstances and have further discussions with them. So that may be something that you would be interested to take up. I will leave further debate to the Chamber. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Further debate? Any debate? None? Thank you. We'll now move the motion, the Transport Committee report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No abstentions. The ayes have it. Councillor Wines, the Infrastructure Committee report.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move the report of the Infrastructure Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Second.
It's been moved by Councillor Wines and seconded by Councillor Matic that the report of the Infrastructure Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Yes, Mr Chair. Look, just very quickly, I just wanted to, before I get into the substance of the report, I just wanted to make mention of a couple of items more broadly. I just wanted to touch on some of the comments that the Lord Mayor made about the Beams Road overpass, and can I also lend my words to my understanding, which was that this council supports the rail overpass project. We have funding ready and available to support that project. We are, as far as my understanding went, we were cooperating fully with the state, and we were providing our expertise to assist to make sure that the project, which could cost, in a very best case scenario, somewhere between $180 and $220 million in the very best case, to perhaps much more than that, that we have an excellent outcome, and that Council remains committed to supporting the state in the delivery of this particular piece of infrastructure. In response to a question in question time regarding the Graceville Five Ways LGIP, how it's included in the LGIP but not on the list. The LGIP is a planning scheme instrument and not a program of works, and the construction projects in the LGIP are subject to a whole range of considerations, including development growth patterns and project costs, among a whole range of other elements. The project itself would require specific funding through the budget at some point, which probably means it is a matter for the Finance Chair at some point in the future. But the notes I have say that, like many intersections along Oxley Road, the main challenge is a lack of right turn lanes or lack of capacity through the network for
Point of order to you,
lanes.
Councillor Johnston.
I should have said you-who, I think. I appreciate that Councillor Wines is in the vicinity, but my question to the Lord Mayor is, about, I asked for a list of all intersections that are currently awaiting funding, and I asked why the Graceful one was not on that list. That is my question. I understand the issues around the 5 ways. My question was about the intersection upgrades and why Graceful's not on the list.
It's not a legitimate point of order, but your question is noted. I'm sure you'll be provided with a more comprehensive response.
My recall is the question was effectively, why is it in the LGIP and not on the list? No. That was how I recall the question. And so, as I was saying, the projects that are funded are a matter for a budget. The short answer is funding for projects such as this are a matter for the budget process. All right.
Councillor Johnston.
Now we move to the report, which was on the Norris Road and Barber upgrade.
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, I seek leave to move an urgency motion calling on Brisbane City Council to list the Graceful 5 Ways intersection upgrade project on the intersection list for consideration for budget funding. And I would appreciate a second.
There's no seconder. Councillor Wines.
I'll second it.
You didn't rise to your feet, Councillor Sri, and so we'll move on.
Thanks, Mr Chair. As I said, the report was about the Norris Road and Barber intersection upgrade, and specifically focusing on the super weekend. And the super weekend was a 58-hour period where council was able to shut the intersection and do what was up to 6 weeks' worth of work over one intersection. So the ability to do that has massively reduced the amount of time that the roadworks will need to be in place. The lights themselves, we hoped to have them turned on by late this month. So the works, Norris Road, for those who don't know, is a major sort of community road that goes up the centre of Bracken Ridge effectively, that links, I'm working from memory here, Telegraph Road to Hoyland Street and Bracken Ridge Road, and it includes the TAFE, Norris Road State School and the shopping centre. It is a major feeder through that community. The call on that road continued to grow, and council has engaged in turning the roundabout there into a controlled traffic lights, among a number of other projects that will continue through Norris Road, and in particular Norris Barber intersection is the centre point of that. The works, as the officers were very enthusiastic in speaking to us about, were able to reduce the time frame for the project by up to 6 weeks. The presentation reflected on the early work that was undertaken by CPO in May to prepare the site for the super weekend, and preparation allowed a great deal of construction through that time frame, and it allowed for the mobilisation of assets to the site, the leading up to it, the execution of the works, and then we're able to leave. And we actually did not need all the 58 hours. We left on the Sunday afternoon with the works we'd hoped for complete. Interestingly, for the interest of the council, Norris Road is a major public transport route, and what we did to ensure that public transport services remained, we created a circular bus route system and a centre point for bus travel where you would all the buses would move to one terminus, and if you had to enter into Bracken Ridge on the typical standard service that would operate on that weekend, we would actually use a small shuttle service to run you back and forward. So, and that was actually used relatively lightly, but was available for the residents who lived in that area to make sure that their standard of service was maintained as best as possible, considering that that road was closed for that weekend. There's still going to be more to talk about on Norris Road. There's further work still to come, and which we'll talk about in the future, but it is a very important road and part of a very important road network for outer North Brisbane, and the works will continue to make sure that that particular part of the world continues to be an even better place to live by making it easier to get around, to get you home sooner and safer. All right, we have 4 petitions today. They are regarding a whole host of things from all corners of the city, and I will allow councillors from those areas to reflect on those in their own time.
Thank you, Councillor Wines. Any further debate? Councillor Strunk.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair. Listen, can I ask that Clause B be taken seriatim?
Item D seriatim?
That's B, yeah.
So item B seriatim. Thank you. Item B for Bertie. Thank you.
You're right. Listen, I rise to talk about this particular petition, and I recognise that it wasn't, I think there was around about 10 people that actually put this petition in, but it's been my experience over the years since I've been the councillor when it comes to petitions, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 people or 100 people, right? You have to give it consideration, and I think this is where this particular petition has been let down, or the head petitioner and the people who signed it have been let down. The process, reading through, and again, we can only base the information on, or what I'm about to say, in regards to what has been given to us on the response and the background and all the rest of it. There may be some other items that occurred that I'm not aware of, but if we have a look at the actual response or the background, it doesn't appear that any council officers in this particular petition, this particular instance, that they contacted the school, Centenary High School. Now, Centenary High School, of course, is a very large, well-performing school, and I'm sure it's probably growing to a certain extent. And the last time that council visited this with a and I don't know if it was in a petition at the time, but certainly for a traffic management plan, they visited that back in June of 2019. And a few items or a few strategies were put in place. Yellow lines, I think it was, restrictive parking, basically. But clearly that hasn't really worked, because clearly the congestion for the drop-off and pick-up, especially the pick-up times, are really impacting on the local residents. And clearly, I think it would have been very appropriate for council officers to maybe revisit that with the school. But evidently, because the school didn't complain that there was an issue, which I'm sure there is an issue there, because I'm sure the residents are being impacted and they wouldn't have been telling porkies, because the school didn't contact council, then nothing was really done in regards to this petition, which I think is a really poor part of the process, or it's poor process, basically. That's what it boils down to. So I think we're not going to support this simply because the process, I don't believe, was followed correctly. I know in my own area, when we've had these issues, and probably most of my schools, we've had a traffic management plan put into place since I became councillor, because the growth of student numbers in most of the schools, especially in our part of Brisbane, the growth has been extensive, and it really needs to. You need to actually re-look at the traffic management plan around any school, I believe, especially if you've got residents complaining about congestion. And I don't think that was that process was followed properly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Further debate? Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to speak in regards to the same petition, item B. Sadly, I wasn't actually in the committee last week to actually inform Councillor Strunk in regards to some of his questions. So the head petitioner is actually a parent from the school, and I've been working very closely with the school in regards to traffic management. I've had a number of meetings with the principal, the police and the local P&C. So the P&C actually wasn't supportive of this petition, and that's why we obviously obviously have the response before us today. It is a very large school, and as Councillor Strunk said, a well-performing school. We've got about 1,800 kids at the school at present, and obviously we want to see kids getting home sooner and safer. So we are working with the school about ensuring that this does happen. So thank you.
Further speakers? Any further speakers? Councillor Wines? No? Okay, we now move to the vote. I'll take items A, C, D and E together. Items A, C, D and E. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. We're now voting on item B. Item B. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division's been called by Councillor Strunk and Councillor Cumming. Ring the bells, please. Thank you, councillors. This is a division on item B in the Infrastructure Committee report. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. Aye. Any opposed, please say no and raise your hands. No. Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Clerks?
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 18 in favour, 3 against and 2 abstentions.
I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Flanders.
Mr Chair, I move that council now adjourn for afternoon tea for 15 minutes, which commences only when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked.
Seconded.
Councillor Landers has moved a motion for an adjournment for afternoon tea, seconded by Councillor Hutton. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Thank you. We'll see you back here after everyone's left the chamber in 15 minutes. Councillor Allen, City Planning and Suburban Renewal Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move that the report of the City Planning and Suburban Renewal Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Landers, that the report of the City Planning and Suburban Renewal Committee meeting dated Tuesday 26 October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Thank you, Mr Chair. In last week's committee presentation, we were provided an update on Outdoor Gallery. Outdoor Gallery is a program bringing artworks to outdoor spaces around Brisbane. The project is aligned with Brisbane Vision 2031, Brisbane's Future Blueprint, Brisbane City Centre Master Plan 2014 and Design-Led City, a design strategy for Brisbane. Benefits of the Outdoor Gallery for Council include making art accessible to the community, encouraging innovative programming and engagement opportunities, including augmented reality and in real-life programming in response to COVID-19 restrictions, sharing the city through the selfie and communication strategies using the hashtag BNE Public Art, the development of the Museum of Brisbane Maker program at home to engage with children, creation of online video content and innovation of digital artworks becoming part of the public art collection, local, state and national acknowledgement and city activation and exploration. In the last year, the project has also enabled the development of new strategic partnerships with Curiosity Brisbane, the Asia Pacific Architecture Festival and Arts Queensland, and the continuation of work with Queensland Gallery of Modern Art, the Museum of Brisbane and Brisbane Greeters. Benefits for artists include opportunities for contemporary artists to exhibit, share contemporary stories and celebrate diversity, and the opportunity for professional development and the creation of new artworks and creating a career trajectory for local talent. A number of exhibitions will be on display throughout the city for the remainder of this financial year, including the current exhibition, Springfinity, APT 10 for kids at Goma, and the Indigenous Art Program 2022, curated by Backlash Creative. I commend the report to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Any debate? I move the report. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No abstentions. The ayes have it. Councillor Davis, the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee report, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I move that the report of the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Davis and seconded by Councillor Mackay that the report of the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee meeting dated Tuesday, 26 October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Mr Chair, our committee presentation was an update on the Oxley Creek Transformation Project. As the Chamber would be aware, the Oxley Creek Transformation Project is a $100 million investment over 20 years, which will transform the 20-kilometre Oxley Creek corridor from the Brisbane River at Tennyson to Larapinta into a world-class lifestyle and leisure destination for Brisbane. The transformation aims to improve the waterway health and biodiversity of Oxley Creek. We've already delivered Worrell Parklands, a nature-based and discovery play space that has become a must-do destination for families. We are next delivering on Archfield Wetlands, which will transform previous industrial land into a new recreation, education and environmental parkland. The committee also considered 3 petitions. The first requested council install lighting at the skate park in Murarrie Rec Reserve at Murarrie, and council received a petition for 123 signatures requesting lighting being installed at the park. Council is currently finalising the master plan for Murarrie Recreation Reserve, and the petition request will be considered as part of the process. Items B and C were petition regarding off-road cycling. Item B was a petition with 2,053 signatures requesting council withdraw the draft off-road cycling strategy for revision, including consideration of wider stakeholder involvement and improve and adequately resource the enforcement of illegal off-road tracks. Item C is a petition with 1,739 signatures requesting council recognise the mountain bike community as stewards of the environment and expedite the development of additional environmentally sustainable single tracks within the Brisbane area. Mr Chair, in 2019, as you would know, council engaged with key stakeholder groups and the broader community about their ideas for future off-road cycling opportunities across the city, and community feedback is currently being used by the project team to guide the development of the off-road cycling strategy, and I'll leave further debate to the Chamber.
Thank you. Further debate? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just ask item B be taken seriatim for voting, please?
Seriatim?
Thank you. And just on that item, the petition calling for lighting at the skate park at the Murarrie Recreation Reserve, Murarrie. Again, just like last week, we had a petition for lighting in a park and it was all too hard and can't be done. And we had a small discussion in the committee last week about this. But from my experience, when a request for lighting or certain upgrades at a recreation reserve of this size is made and the response is that can be dealt with in a larger precinct plan, the answer is quite often that it gets lost. And the outcome that these constituents over in Murarrie are seeking is an upgrade to the lighting there. The response does not provide that, and it doesn't provide a commitment from this administration to actually carrying out the lighting here. So from our experience, once bitten twice shy throughout these processes, there should be a commitment in here that this project will proceed, not just being left to a potentially be included in a larger project. So we won't be supporting clause B.
Thank you. Further debate? Any further debate? Councillor Davis, Samo.
In response to those comments by Councillor Cassidy, I think it's really important to note that that when Council considers the installation of lighting around skate parks, we do consider the proximity to neighbouring residents, the noise, likelihood of promoting antisocial behaviour, casual surveillance and relevant site constraints. In addition, I would just point out that at this time, the Murray Rec Reserve car park is locked overnight to discourage the use of the park facilities at night. I can assure the chamber that lighting of the precinct under the master plan will be considered.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. We'll now put the items A, C and D together. Items A, C and D. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. We'll now move item B. All those in favour of item B, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it. Division being called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Cumming. Please ring the bells. Councillors, the division is about item B in the Environment Park Sustainability Committee report. All in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Raise your hands. No. Any abstentions? Councillor Cook. Clerks.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 17 in favour and 6 against.
I declare that carried. Thank you. Councillor Marx, the City Standards Committee report.
Yes, Mr Chair, I move that the report of the City Standards Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded, Mr Chair.
It's been moved by Councillor Marx and seconded by Councillor Toomey that the report of the City Standards Committee meeting dated Tuesday 26 October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair. Briefly, before I get to the report, I want to address two items. One, Councillor Hutton asked the question in committee this morning about the number of yellow top bins. The year to date has been 2,543 households have ordered the larger yellow top bin, one of them being my household, and I can tell you I pretty much fill it every week, so I'm glad I got the larger one. The other item I want to... Sorry, was that interjection, Councillor Cumming, by some...
Councillor Cumming, if you want to participate in the debate, please do so. Don't shout out across the chamber.
I only became the chair a year ago, at which point I got the yellow top bin, so, you know, I walked the walk.
Councillor Cumming.
I don't know why I bothered taking that mumbling. Anyway, the other question, the other item I want to address is a can I call it a furphy, Mr Chair, about a question in the budget, or as Councillor Strunk through you, Mr Chair, called it the estimates. The question was asked of Councillor Murphy at the time, how many safer school travel footpaths did he have in his budget, which the answer is 18. And it is 18, was 18, will always be 18 in this year's budget. What people need to understand is that as the councillor for the Chair of Transport, he has the budget for those 18 footpaths to do with the travel school program. I have the remaining budget of over $40 million to deliver the new and the renewed footpaths. So to anybody's estimate that we would spend $45 million or $40 million on 18 footpaths is just not living on this planet. So I just want to reiterate again, the Lord Mayor, mentioned that again in his speech this morning about how many footpaths have been done as far as the budget that I have is spending it on. And as I want to reiterate again, so this year, financial year 2020-21 is 1,653 and a total of 213 brand new footpaths that weren't there before. So when we talk about a reconstruction, we talk about, yes, there was a footpath there, yes, it was damaged, yes, we removed it, and yes, we replaced it for a new one. So I really don't want to hear any more nonsense about only being 18 footpaths funded in the budget. The committee report last week was about the Cultural Centre Boardwalk Rehabilitation Project. It was a very interesting project. Basically, in a nutshell, the old timber was removed and new stuff was put down, much longer lasting. Men's sheds benefited from the use of some of that old timber, which was great to see it going to a good home. There was a question asked about why we didn't replace the railing, the hand railing, at the same time as the boardwalk, and I have to admit that I did ask the same question. Did have that as my question as well. So through you, Mr Chair, I have to admit, Councillor Johnston, you and I are both ignorant on how engineering works, because the idea is about optimising our assets. So as it was explained to me, what was needed replacing was replaced at the time, but if it didn't need replacing, we just left it status quo. So I would suggest that's probably what we call good financial management, leave well enough alone. If and when it does deteriorate, then we will be putting into the budget for fixing at that point or renewal. And there's also some petitions here that I'm happy to leave debate to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any further debate? Oh, Councillor Cumming.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I've decided I'll speak now rather than throwing out those good interjections I've been doing all day. So, Mr Chair, I refer to item B and ask that it be dealt with seriatim for voting purposes.
Item B, seriatim.
Item B, yes. Now, item B is a petition requesting council install rubbish bins between Loder Park and Cambridge Parade, Manly. It was received during the summer recess 2020-21. Now, my estimation says this recess finished on the 1st of February 2021, some 9 months ago. So this is the time, the response time is a disgrace, and it's a reflection of the arrogance and the lack of standards of Councillor Marks. Anyhow, to set the scene, the Esplanade walking path goes from the main street of Manly, Cambridge Parade, right through to Loder Park, more correctly described as Loder Camping Reserve, and it's a considerable distance. On this occasion, the department has agreed to put in one bin at the intersection of Falcon Street and the Esplanade, but there's still a considerable distance from that bin to the first bin you find in Loder, which I took out my trusty measuring. I've got a measuring wheel, they're a good little device, and I measured, and it's actually 1 kilometre with no bins at all. That is not a satisfactory responsibility as far as I'm concerned. It's a very busy area, the Esplanade, very high level of pedestrian usage, local residents and visitors on the weekend, and I believe that another bin or two bins, a plain rubbish bin and a recycling bin would be a great idea for that area, and I believe there's an area that could be fitted in on the corner of Davenport Drive and the Esplanade outside of Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron. And so I'm not satisfied with the response that has been given by the administration, and I would like to see more bins along that area. And I call upon the administration to consider that matter and to do it if possible. Otherwise, local residents will be continuing to protest and continuing to call for more bins along that section of the Esplanade. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumming. Further debate? Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just on that note, through you, Mr Chair, Councillor Cummings, so the officers took a great deal of time to do the research on the request about seriously, what is wrong with that man? I don't know. While working out where they could put an installation of a rubbish bin in at that suggested location. After their research, there was a couple of things that they wanted to point out, which I have pointed out in the committee, and I'm quite happy to do that here. It was noted that the stretch of walkway between Davenport Drive and Ernest Street poses many safety risks for council's contractors, as there is no space for rubbish bins to be installed without imposing on the footpath. Installation of a rubbish bin in this location would then render that part of the footpath inaccessible for any persons in a wheelchair or mobility scooter. As a result, you would be put council in breach of the Disability Discrimination Act 1992. Also, inspections of the site identified that the stretch of road is built on a one-way traffic only, with nowhere for council's collection vehicles to pull over to the side of the road. So again, through you, Mr Chair, I would suggest that the council officers who do this research are far more qualified to make these kind of decisions than you, I or anyone else in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. We'll now move to the vote on items A, C, D and E. A, C, D and E. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Now move to the vote on item B. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it. Division been called by Councillor Cumming and Councillor Strunk. Ring the bells. Thank you, councillors. The division is on item B in the City Standards Report. All in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. Aye. Any opposed, please say no and raise your hands. No. Are there any abstentions? Clerks?
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 17 in favour, 5 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you. I declare that item carried. Councillor Howard, the Community Arts and Nighttime Economy Committee report, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move that the report of the Community Arts and Nighttime Economy Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Howard and seconded by Councillor Landers that the report of the Community Arts and Nighttime Economy Committee meeting dated Tuesday 26 October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Well, thank you for asking, Mr Chair, because, of course, there has been so much happening in this portfolio over the last couple of weeks. I'm actually tired thinking about it. I've tried to attend most of the things that I'm about to talk about, but I do want to say it is fantastic to see so many people out and about. And I'll start with the Tenerife Festival that returned. Of course, as a lot of you know, our suburban festivals, some of them haven't been able to be held, but it was just fantastic. It was the 11th year of the Tenerife Festival and it was a huge success, and I really want to thank the volunteer organisers and to know that everybody seemed to have a really good time. I also want to thank the Sleswick brothers for the fantastic work that they have done on reopening the Princess Theatre, and I recognise that it's in Councillor Shree's area, but it's the most magnificent reconstruction of a beautiful building, and so the Princess Theatre is now open, and so there was a huge amount of activity happening over the last weekend with the opening of the Princess Theatre. We also had, of course, Brisbane Pride Festival was on this weekend, and Trevor Evans and I were able to sort of march in the street. I did see Councillor Cassidy standing on the side of the road. Next year, Councillor Cassidy, I insist that you walk with our wonderful contingent, because it is fantastic to walk with the community. It was such a hot day, I have to say. It was a very, very hot day, but it is again fantastic to see it being held in New Farm Park, and it was again a great weekend, because not only was Brisbane Pride Festival on, but so was Valley Fiesta. Now, this is the second year that we have held Valley Fiesta in the venues in the Valley, and it's really important that I mention all of the work that went into organising this, because it was over 3 nights, starting on Thursday the 28th of October and wrapping up on Saturday. and for more than 2 decades, Valley Fiesta has been showcased our emerging talent of Fortitude Valley's live music. So it really was something that was fantastic this year. We had 150 artists across 21 different venues. And can I say that, yes, DZ Death Race was on the thing. It was fantastic. But also was Hope D and Ian Hogarth, who is from Powderfinger, who was the ambassador for Valley Fiesta this year, were in the Valley on Friday, actually, with the media to sort of announce some of the acts that were on. And it's great to think that Hope D is one of our Cube Effect alumni, and I think what a great thing it is for this council to have such emerging talent coming through programs such as the Cube Effect, but also now to be, just an amazing talent that's going from strength to strength. So Ian also has been, this is the 2nd year that he was the ambassador, and it was really fantastic to see that that was all happening. We then moved to Saturday night, where we had the Brisbane Fashion Month, and I want to say a big thank you to Laura Churchill. Laura has used all local designers, and the Fashion Month has held over 15 events right across Brisbane. It culminated with a big event on Saturday night at the Mercedes-Benz area, and we really want to thank Mercedes-Benz for their ongoing support of the community, and to, just to have so many people enjoying so many talented local designers was truly fantastic. And I finished the weekend by going to the 4MBS 15th anniversary of the Shakespeare Festival, and I want to say a big thank you to Gary Thorpe, because he does such a great job, and as I said, this was the 15th year, and of course fittingly it was Macbeth. So I know you might have been having your Halloween in other areas, but we had Macbeth in Roma Street Parkland. The Curlews joined in, so it was absolutely fantastic. So that's just a small section of some of the things that we're doing across this portfolio, and I'm so proud of the work that everybody does. I also want to thank all of the councillors in this chamber for the support that they give to our local communities, and the efforts that they take to make these wonderful things happen. And I know Councillor Atwood had an event, I think, on the weekend, and Councillor Owen, I'll stop there because I'm sure that many of you had events over the weekend which were really fantastic. Mr Chair, just moving to the committee presentation, I want to begin by thanking each and every council officer that has ever worked in our contact centre. We had a committee presentation on 25 years of the contact centre, and I want to say a big thank you to Shane Hackett. It was obvious to the committee how passionate and how committed Shane is to the contact centre, and the pride with which he gave us the presentation, and the background was fantastic. We had Councillor Griffiths asking questions, and I know Councillor Griffiths has previously worked in council in the past, and so it was fantastic to have the stats on the number of calls that had taken, to know that we had people just picking up phones in the past, and now the fact that we can have those calls answered in any emergency right across Brisbane. So it was a fantastic presentation. It was great to understand that we can now see why the contact centre is such an award-winning contact centre, and we continue to get very, very high recognition from the residents of Brisbane, and the Shrinner Council will continue to support that contact centre well into the future. So a big, big thank you to each and every one that has been there, and I will commend the report to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Any further debate? Councillor Johnston.
Yes, just briefly, I'd like to put on the record my support for the call centre at Brisbane City Council. They do a fantastic job. Certainly I've had a very valued staff member who worked in the call centre. She's back there at the moment, actually. And I know it's quite difficult for them with a lot of calls that come in. So they do a great job. It is fantastic that we have such a service in Brisbane, and I certainly hope it continues for a long time. So well done to all the call centre staff. Congratulations on your 25th anniversary.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Cumming.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd also like to say what a great job the call centre does, and of course it was a great Labor initiative, and Labor started up in Brisbane, as they did with City Cats, and of course often we don't get acknowledged for that, but anyhow, that's how the other mob play their politics. And I also like to, speaking to the council officer who came along, who's the late night person that you get at the contact centre, I must ring up out of hours because I'm regular speaking terms with this lady, and it was very good to speak with her face to face. And it's a fine organisation that's done very well over the years and may it continue for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further debate? Councillor Howard, summing up. We'll now move the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes well and truly have it. Thank you very much. Councillor Cunningham, the Finance and City Governance Committee report, please.
Mr Chair, I move that the report of the Finance and City Governance Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of October 2021 be adopted.
Seconded. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Cunningham and seconded by Councillor Huang that the report of the Finance and City Governance Committee meeting dated Tuesday 26 October 2021 be adopted. Is there any debate?
Thank you, Mr Chair. And can I just say it's great to be back on deck and to provide my first report as Chair of the Finance and City Governance Committee. With your indulgence, Mr Chair, could I also just take this opportunity to thank Councillor Davis for her work in my former portfolio while I was on maternity leave, and also to my Deputy, Councillor Huang, for acting in the role during the last session. My sincere thanks to both of you. It takes a village, as they say, and my Shrina Council colleagues have been nothing but supportive after having my second son, Frankie, so thank you all for that. Mr Chair, to the report now. Clause A is the net borrowings report, which was also our committee presentation. The Corporate Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer took questions from the committee and provided regular quarterly update on the market conditions. COVID lockdowns and, of course, the vaccine rollouts continue to be a key factor in local, national and global economic indicators. We're also updated on a number of other matters, such as global supply chain challenges, the housing market, commodity prices and the labour market. Clause B is the regular monthly bank and investment report, and the August report shows considerable increase in cash, which is due to rates receipts, and that's in line with our quarterly billing cycles. Mr Chair, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham. Is there any debate? There being no debate, I'll move the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Councillors, are there any petitions? Councillor Matic.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I have one petition on behalf of residents in Barden regarding the Barden Latrobe Football Club at Bowman Park.
Thank you. Councillor Marx.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair. I have two petitions, both for the same thing, requesting that the council park, formerly known as Gager Street Park, be renamed in honour of Richard Martin Place, otherwise known as Dick. He's a well-loved member of the RSL, known to all, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I have a petition regarding the operating hours and noise pollution from the Dirty Sultan Bar in Constance Street at Fortitude Valley.
Thank you. Councillor Sri.
Mr Chair, I've got a petition with several hundred signatures calling for separated bike lanes along Dornock Terrace and Gladstone Road in Highgate Hill.
Thank you. Any further petitions? Councillor Landers, may I have a motion for receipt of the petitions, please?
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is Councillor Strunk on his feet? No. Oh, sorry. My apologies. I didn't see back there. Hello.
Just
sorry.
Me.
Sorry.
Just me.
Thank you. My apologies. Councillor Cook.
I think there is a petition in the chamber on my desk that I received an email about for traffic calming measures in Norman Park that someone will just need to hand up. Thank you.
Is that there? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cook. My apologies for not recognising you. Councillor Landers, may I have a motion for receipt of the petitions, please?
Mr Chair, I move that the petitions as presented be received and referred to the committee concerned for consideration and report.
Second. It's been moved by Councillor Landers and seconded by Councillor Strunk that all petitions as presented be received and referred to the committee concerned for consideration and report. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. General business.
Councillor Adams. Thank you, Chair.
As we approach the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, I'd like to bring to the attention of the Chamber work that has and is being undertaken in my ward to honour those who have served in the defence of our country. Councillors will be aware that Mount Coot-tha is the home to our national memorial at the end of World War II, called the National Australian Remembers Freedom Wall. Chair, I'm pleased to report that since the National Australian Remembers Freedom Wall was unveiled in 1996, it has just received its first significant facelift via new signage and logos. This is a credit to the Schrinner Council, which recognises that our city landmarks need to be regularly maintained and kept relevant as we count down towards July 2032. By way of a background, the National Memorial was designed by legendary Queenslander Robin Gibson and was the brainchild of the Veterans Affairs Minister of the day, the late Con Shaka. Sadly, his passion was not shared by the Sawley administration, which shamefully shortchanged this project during the years it occupied City Hall. This has been rectified under successive Liberal administrations, and the memorial is now starting to realise its true potential. Acting Chair, next year we will see the opening of the redeveloped Bonsai House, which is the product of a life's work of inspiring World War II veteran Len Webber. Bonsai House will join the World Expo 88 legacy asset, the Japanese Gardens, the Children's Playground and the more botanic-themed sculptures and enhanced garden experiences. It's important, being an Olympic city, that we have international class assets to show the world, and the Schrinner Council is to be commended for its significant investment in the Botanic Gardens at Mount Coot-tha to ensure it will be in full bloom come 2032. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adam. And just before I move on, councillors, are there any statements required as a result of the Office of the Independent Assessor or Council Ethics Committee order? No, thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. I rise to speak on intersection upgrades in Brisbane and specifically Tennyson Ward. It's become quite a concern to me that Brisbane City Council is failing to undertake important intersection upgrades in Tennyson Ward. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of why. I believe there is a political problem in that the chairs and the Lord Mayor of Brisbane just refuse to fund projects in my ward. But I also am increasingly, that's based on feedback from very senior former council officers, so I know that to be true. I also, however, am concerned about the structural problems that advice that I got some time ago actually raised. If officers are being told to take projects out of lists for funding, how is that a fair, honest and reasonable process? So, over the last few months I've been asking questions. I'm very sorry to say that I am not getting answers to those questions. On the 28th of September I made a file request asking for all intersection upgrades listed in Brisbane that were on a long list, basically. So this is the list of all the intersection upgrades that we've all asked for, that the council officers think should be on the agenda. That list was not provided to me in response to my request under the City of Brisbane Act. Instead, I got a list which said, here is a list of the intersection upgrades that are being considered for the 2022-2023 budget. No, I'm not allowed to tell you what's in it because I'm told by the acting CEO that it's secret, so we can't even tell people what we're considering. But I can tell you now that that list does not include all the intersections that are either have been passed by this council as requiring an upgrade or listed on our LGIP. So, where's the long list? How do you get onto the list to actually get budget funding? It's very clear to me that this council is not engaging in the selection of infrastructure projects fairly or honestly. And my question today was very clear indeed, and it was not answered by the Lord Mayor, who had no idea, and then there was some dissembling from the infrastructure chairperson who wanted to talk about the LGIP. My question is, why is the Graceville Five Ways intersection upgrade not appearing on any council intersection list? I wasn't even asking for funding a couple of months ago. I was asking, where's the long list? If there's no long list, how are projects being chosen to be funded in next year's budget? Is council just going, oh, we'll just do that one, we'll do that one, we'll do that one? There must be a long list, there must be a master list, there must be one. Now that's the question that I asked today. Neither the Lord Mayor knows and the Infrastructure Chairman doesn't know. That does not reflect well on council. And I can tell you now that the CEO of council has a formal complaint from me asking where this list is. Because there must be an open and accountable process for infrastructure upgrades in this city. It's clearly not happening. Now I can see from the list of projects that I was sent, which are the ones being considered for next year's budget, that there are projects on there that council are actually telling me they're not doing. So not only are they telling me one thing and then doing something else, the projects that are listed under public documents like the LGIP aren't being considered at all. So if we've got projects that are supposed to be funded in a certain time frame that don't appear on a list for consideration, how is it they get funded? What's the point of having an LGIP list or a long list of intersection upgrades if council's not using proper, fair processes to identify the priorities? Now, we're told in letters time and time again that these upgrade projects are chosen on a priority basis for where they're needed most. Well, that must mean that there's a long list, that it's categorised, that there's some independent criteria that say, yes, there's been 150 accidents at this intersection, it's the top priority. There's nothing like that that's been provided to me. There is nothing like that that has been provided in the response to the file requests for information. So every time this council tells us that there is a process for funding intersections, it's clearly and fundamentally untrue. It's been compounded by Councillor Wines' flippant and uninformed answer today. I will not be stopping until I find out why there is no list of projects which, remember, this is all I've asked for, a list of intersection upgrades around Brisbane. You would think that's not a difficult thing. Just want the list of all the intersections that are due to be upgraded in Brisbane. The CEO of council couldn't provide it. The Lord Mayor of Brisbane couldn't provide it. The Infrastructure Chairman of Brisbane couldn't provide it. And I think it's now time for the Ombudsman to investigate why this council can't provide basic information about infrastructure upgrades and what intersections are listed for upgrade in Brisbane. It was a very simple question. Look, the Deputy Mayor's over there having a little chat. It'd be great if she knew. I mean, next time I'll try and ask her the question.
Deputy Mayor, please. Councillor Johnson, please continue. Councillor Johnson.
What? I asked the CEO first, then I asked the Lord Mayor, and then the Infrastructure Chairman didn't give me an answer. Guess who's next, Councillor Adams? The Ombudsman. That is the formal process for when government refuses to follow its own processes. That's how it works.
Councillor Johnson, can I remind you to direct
Thank you.
through the chair,
I would have
please?
certainly, Mr Chairman, certainly preferred that the CEO provide me with the list of intersections. He's got an obligation to do so under the City of Brisbane Act and did not do so. So I have made a formal administrative action complaint about that because that's the only way in which I can follow up with him. If there's some other way, please let me know, because all I ask for, and let me be very clear to everyone listening up at George Street and everyone watching at home, my request to the CEO in September was for a list of intersections in Brisbane that are listed with council for upgrading. I was not provided with that list, and my repeated questions have gone unanswered since. I don't think that's reasonable. This council needs to be accountable for what projects are awaiting funding. They need to be transparent about how those projects are selected, And they need to be able to answer questions when they're asked about why important and vital projects in my ward aren't getting funded. They're not on a long list, they're not on a short list, they're not on any list. So where are they? I represent 31,000 residents in Brisbane, and I will never stop asking questions for them. And because of the answers or the non-answers by the Infrastructure Chairman and the Lord Mayor today, I am left with no other option but to take this matter further. If this council can't provide a simple list of intersection upgrades for the City of Brisbane, then there is something very wrong with them. There's $4.3 million for a Brisbane app, but they can't answer a question about which intersections are listed for upgrade. That is not good enough, and it identifies that projects in my ward aren't being considered at all. I will find out why, and I will pursue this.
Any further general business? Councillor Wines.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Chair. I rise to speak on the recent 70th birthday of Our Lady of Dollars School at Mitchelton. And I would like to congratulate both the school and the church for their ongoing commitment to the Mitchelton community. I am wearing a wonderful pin that was given to me by the school that represents their symbol, which is head, heart and hand, and it's about caring for all of those through our community. They had a recent fantastic fete to celebrate their 70th birthday, and while it's only a school with only a single class per cohort, it is a school that has a huge effect in our local community who does so much good work. They would tell us stories about their first year where they had 69 students appear on their first day for 2 Good Samaritan sisters to teach all of the children. And then by the end of the year, there was 125 students who'd come from the local area, and that number grew and grew. And I'm informed that the number of sisters teaching them actually didn't grow. And so I know some of our colleagues here grew up, educated in the Good Samaritan system, and I know that, they're always spoken of fondly. I found an interesting note about the formation of the school. A telegram to the Reverend Mother General from Archbishop Duhigg reads, 200 children awaiting opening school Mitchelton stop. Decided accept 2 sisters and seek teaching help for them. School opens Tuesday 30th. Regards. And that was the direction of the Archbishop to start this wonderful school. There was a lady at a recent building opening who was there on the first day and still lives next door to the school 70 years later. So it speaks testament to the important community place that this school represents for our area. Can I congratulate them on 70 wonderful years and wish them all the best for the future.
I was very curious about the pin, Councillor Wines. I was admiring it from afar. Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you very much. Any further general business? Councillor Shreve.
Thanks, Chair. I rise to speak primarily about Mater Hospital proposed redevelopment, but also just wanted to provide some positive feedback for Councillor Wines. There was a specific road project in my ward that I had been seeking information from Council about for probably close to 2 years and had written repeated questions through to the Mayor and to the former Chair and not really getting anywhere, but recently wrote to Councillor Wines, and I assume he instructed his officers to follow up with me, and I was able to get direct answers, and the concerns I'd raised were addressed, and I was really pleased. It felt like a more efficient process, and I don't know what had changed, but it was really easy to get the answers that I've been seeking for a long time. So credit to Councillor Wines for being a bit more transparent than perhaps some people who've previously occupied the role. I wanted to speak about the Mater Hospital ministerial infrastructure designation, and this is something that perhaps Councillor Allen and Councillor Wines will also have to be alert to going forward. I'm sure most councillors in this chamber are familiar with the concerns about the MID process. Mater Hospital is now seeking a ministerial infrastructure designation for its site at South Brisbane. This is a very strategically significant site that has ramifications for the entire southern side of Brisbane. The Mater Hospital sits along Stanley Street and Annerley Road, so any councillors who've driven along Stanley Street or come up along Annerley Road will know how bad the traffic is in that precinct, particularly in morning and evening peak periods. The Mater Hospital MID is proposing a significant intensification of the site. On the Stanley Street side, they've got buildings proposed up to 20 stories. On the southern side of the site along Clarence Street, they're proposing buildings of 10 and 15 stories. But above and beyond the usual concerns about building height and bulk, and etc., really my fundamental concern is about the fact that the intensification of use is going to lead to significantly more traffic congestion for that area. We know that hospitals can generate a lot of traffic, but what MARTA seems to be proposing as part of this MID is really something much bigger than even a large hospital. This is multiple 20-storey and 15-storey towers, really intensive land uses in terms of hospital. You councillors would know, even a hospital with a couple of 5-storey buildings, it leads to a lot of traffic. We're talking about a scale of hospital use we haven't really seen previously in Brisbane on any site, in a location that is plagued by traffic congestion issues. Stanley Street doesn't have a lot of capacity left, and with other major developments in the area such as the Gabba Stadium and the Cross River Rail Station, I'm really concerned about the long-term impacts of intensification of use on this site, particularly if the MARTA is delivering significantly more off-street car parking capacity as part of its redevelopment. I anticipate, based on my conversations with representatives from the MARTA, that they will want to deliver a lot more off-street parking to accommodate the significant intensification of use, and I would suggest that that's not a good thing for the city as a whole, and particularly for that part of the transport network. So I hope that Councillor Allen and Councillor Wines, and I don't know, perhaps Councillor Murphy, are paying some attention to the MARTA Hospital MID process, and that council officers are objecting strongly. I know the council officers have met with representatives of the MARTA, but I worry that those officers are perhaps not being strong enough in terms of resisting or objecting to the project. Among other things, the MID would likely require the widening of Clarence Street, which is a residential street. On one side of the street, it has low-rise 1- and 2-storey character buildings, and MARTA is proposing 15-storey towers directly across the road from those 1- and 2-storey character buildings, but would also need to widen that intersection. Not just the intersection, sorry, widen that whole street. So, Councillor Allen, through you, Chair, I really hope your officers will be looking closely at this and expressing in the strongest possible terms concerns to the state government and objecting to this MID. It's not enough to sort of negotiate and try and get some partial concessions on this. Council needs to fight this one really strongly, because if the state government approves this, the flow-on impacts to the south side are going to be quite dramatic. They're impacts that we won't notice them for another 5 to 10 years, because this MID is for a sort of a large, long-term redevelopment. But the simple fact of the matter is that the site is already maxed out in terms of land use intensity, and the more intensive hospital usage we cram onto that site, the more those traffic impacts and other associated impacts are going to be felt by the surrounding community. I have other concerns about the proposed master plan that MARTA Hospital has put forward. That includes the lack of any significant public green space. So we're talking about a private hospital that's bringing in a lot more workers and patients and visitors, etc., into a site where the southern side of I heard that, Councillor Strong. There's apparently a little garden on the roof of one of the buildings, but it's hardly public space. And I think the principle stands that if a hospital which is land is zoned for community facilities, and which council probably never anticipated would be developed to this scale, if that hospital is seeking to put in 15 and 20-storey towers, they should be required at a bare minimum to include a little bit of public parkland. And so I hope council will be pushing back very, very strongly. I'll be raising this again repeatedly if I don't have a clear response at some point from the relevant chairs, because I think this one in particular is a lot more significant than some of the other MIDs we've seen, and I know some of those other MIDs have had their own problems. But when you look closely at this proposed master plan, the sheer scale of development that MARTA Hospital is seeking to impose on that area of South Brisbane and Woolloongabba is a quantum leap higher in terms of land use intensity. And so if any of the council officers are listening, those who are involved in the traffic assessments and the land use impact assessments and transport planning, please don't roll over on this one. We need to fight this one quite strongly, because the transport impacts, particularly to Stanley Street, Annerley Road, also to Stevens Road, Clarence Street and Vulture Street, are really going to be off the chain long term. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Any further? Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Deputy Chair. I rise to
pleasure.
speak about the 25th anniversary of City Cats and Council's call centre. And these are two special anniversaries, of course. This month marks 25 years since City Cats were introduced to the River City, and last month marked 25 years since Council's call centre was open. And the Lord Mayor responsible for these now critical services was none other than Labor great Jim Sawley. He was a mayor with a vision, a mayor that knew his job was about serving the people and not himself. The council call centre isn't particularly flashy or specky.
Councillors, please. When you're ready, Councillor
Thanks,
Cassidy.
Deputy Chair. The council call centre isn't particularly flashy or specky, but it's important to the people of Brisbane. It was needed back in 1996 and residents still depend on it every day. And the City Cats themselves have become part of thousands of residents' daily lives too. Brisbane was a river city that had its back to the river, but Jim changed that. He gave the river life and purpose. He opened the city's icon up to everyone, not just those that could afford a boat or who had an expensive view. Now tourists come to Brisbane just to ride a City Cat. His vision has become iconic here in Brisbane. So I'd like to congratulate that Labor administration under Lord Mayor Jim Sawley. Unlike this LNP administration, they made the city a better place and left a legacy that benefits residents for decades to come. At this point, Chair, I'd also just like to move the suspension of standing orders to enable me to move an urgency motion that Brisbane City Council commits to delivering bus services for Pallara residents in the Callum Vale ward.
Second.
That's just been sent through.
Thank you. Do you have a... Just give me one moment, Councillor Cassidy. We've got it. So we've got the motion as read by Councillor Cassidy, moved by Councillor Strunk. Seconded by Councillor Strunk, moved by Councillor Cassidy. When you're ready.
Thanks very much, Deputy Chair.
Point of order, Chair. Can we just have that read back?
I'll read it. Oh, do you want to read it, or happy for me to read it?
Well, I'm happy to read it if I've got a copy. I just don't have a copy at hand.
I'm happy to read it. That Brisbane City Council commits to delivering bus services for Pallara residents in the Callum Vale ward. Happy for me to proceed?
Yep, please.
Thanks very much, Deputy Chair. It's urgent because the suburb of Pallara is growing by the day. It's a developing area with hundreds of new residents and new housing developments. Residents are being ignored by this LNP council and have been forced to petition just to be heard. It's urgent today because despite nearly 800 signatures, all we have seen is complete inaction from the LNP Lord Mayor and the local LNP councillor Angela Owen. Chair, Pallara residents have no safe pedestrian access in or out of their suburb. The only way across 7 kilometres of unpathed terrain is amongst construction and heavy machinery. Now, this is urgent, Deputy Chair, because Council opened this suburb up for housing developments without building the necessary infrastructure first. The people of Pallara deserve much better than what this out-of-touch LNP Council is serving up to them.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. We'll now put the is there any debate? No, we'll now put the motion. All those in favour to suspend standing orders for urgency, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. I believe the noes have it.
Division.
Division.
I have division called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Strunk. Can you please ring the bells? As we've got most of the councillors in the chamber, we'll now put the motion again. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And raise your hands, please. So that's 5 on my count. And those against? No. Clerks, when you're ready, please read the result.
Mr Chair, the noes have it, the voting being 5 in favour and 16 against.
The motion to urgency is lost. Councillor Cassidy, would you like to finish your GB? You have, thank you. Any further general business? I see no one rising to their feet. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.